What's up? Welcome back to another Octagon here. Today we've got a special format for you guys. It's vintage. Zan, are you first of all, happy Tuesday, because the week's got to start off in a good way. But what's poppin', dude? How you doing?
Dude, I just got a fresh cut. I'm feeling hella good. I had to literally go in someone's house and keep my mask on the entire time, so my beard is not as fresh as my head.
Bro,
But
you're looking pretty good though. I do like it. I got to say. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited. The vintage doesn't get a lot of exposure, Zan, and I'm pretty excited that we actually get to do a vintage Octagon here, just to give the vintage community a little bit of what say, know how to keep people on the update. Because like vintage, I feel like not many people really know about too much of the format, and there are a lot of people who are dedicated to the format, and that is kind of cool, honestly, that we actually get to showcase some of what's going on today.
no, definitely. I mean, every single time I've played this format, I've felt really good about it. I think it's one of the best formats. There's so much variety of decks, especially because it hasn't been played on a high competitive level to like get rid of some of the worst decks. And like us doing a tournament maybe leads to a more competitive vintage scene. I mean, I understand why there hasn't been one. There's such a restriction on people, such a barrier for people to be able to play this format in real life. But since we've transitioned everything online, people can actually experience Magic in a completely different way. This is like even more degenerate than Legacy like can ever be, you know?
But I also think that, despite the power of cards like Ancestral Recall and Black Lotus, or even like Bazaar of Baghdad, if that's what you're about, there's still some balance, right? Like the vintage format, it's not like you're going to always end or lose games on turn one way or the other. That being said, I mean, you do have some swinging games here, but I feel like the vintage metagame has sort of like it's sort of balancing itself out. And like while you can occasionally like lose games on the spot, there's still a lot of counterplay, and I'm kind of excited to take a look at it. So let's dive into the first deck list here. We're gonna be taking a look at an old one from Legacy that has now been ported over to Vintage. And this is Underworld Breach, and it looks like it's a 4-color version, actually. So we see the Volcanics, the Underground Seas, and the Tundras. Zan, are you familiar with the Underworld Breach combo?
Yeah, I mean, I've played it a decent amount. I mean, you just brain freeze yourself with Underworld Breach, and then you're able to mill your opponent out. Um, am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely correct here, right?
Yeah.
So the goal is to assemble a couple cards here. You can assemble Underworld Breach, Black Lotus, and Brain Freeze, right? And you've got a lot of tools
Oh
to get
yeah.
those cards together, right? Like Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, what have you, right? And then, like you mentioned, you play the Underworld Breach, you mill yourself with Brain Freeze, and then you get to buy back the Black Lotus with Underworld Breach. Use that to buy back the Brain Freeze with Underworld Breach, and then you just keep the loop going, and then eventually you just target your opponent and you mill them to death here. Otherwise, it seems like a pretty reasonable Xerox-esque deck. So when I say Xerox, Zan, I mean like this is just like by principle, this deck is trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, kind of like a Xerox machine. And so you can see a lot of like dedicated card draw. You've got like Teferi the Dak, the Narset. You got cards like Dig Through Time in the list as well. Your stock Ancestral Recalls. We'll also see that there's a lot of blue counter magic. So this deck definitely feels like it's geared towards beating blue decks with like the 4 main deck Pyroblast. I mean, that's kind of just the format, right? Because the format does devolve into blue decks, generally shops decks, and then dredge decks. So this is almost pre-boarded for some of the blue matchups. But Zan, on the other side of the table, they've got a little bit of a spicy one, a little bit of a not stock list here. Look at this and give me your first reaction to this deck.
Well, I mean, this deck is very dear to my heart, so I can't like I've got to support it in some shape or form. But it does seem kind of underwhelming for this format. I mean, you have some really powerful cards. I mean, Thalia definitely seems like a beater, but and so does Combo. But I mean, they're kind of missing like the human that has really given me a lot of difficulty, which is Lavinia. No blue cards. So I'm not sure. I mean, Sanctum Prelate is definitely a scary card, but no card selection in a like super degenerate format. I would say this deck is certainly unfavored.
Yeah, I get the feeling that what's going to happen here in game one, one of the huge dynamics is that this deck doesn't care about all the cards of like copies of like Pyroblast, all the copies of Flusterstorm, and you're going to get a huge advantage there by being able to play all your disruptive pieces. And speaking of which, it does look like the players are ready to go. So let's take a look at opening hands here.
Ooh,
Yeah, and so peep
wow.
this, Zan. Yeah, this is kind of crazy, right? So turn one, we've got Mox Jet, Noble Hierarch to accelerate stuff. No real disruption here in the form of like like the Thalias that we saw, or like Sanctum Prelates or whatnot. But I think it's still going to be possible for. I mean, you could always mulligan this hand. This hand could get a little bit aggressive. There's also the Once Upon a Time here. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this hand is a snap keep, right? Once Upon a Time can find one of those like crazy cards in the matchup, probably like Dahlia or Sanctum Prelate. So I'm gonna assume this is a snap keep. And then on the other side, Franco, I mean, has Mental Misstep, which is generally supposed to be good, but is most likely gonna get punished by a Cavern of Souls.
Yeah,
So
Cavern of, I mean, like you look at the Noble Hierarch and you're like, okay, yeah, maybe the Mental Misstep could connect with this, but Cavern of Souls is still very powerful in a format that is as blue as vintage here. And let's see, the Once Upon a Time found that Thalia, just like you said
yeah.
here, and yeah, I mean, like check it out. This is what you get to do in vintage if you want to play with these like crazy creatures, right? You just go turn one Hate Bear thanks to the acceleration of my 0 mana ramp in the form of Mox Jet. So we're already looking at a pretty crazy game here where Franco just can only play a land and pass, can't leverage any of those powerful cantrips in his hand.
No, for sure. I mean, this clock is gonna be really, really fast. I mean, you can assume that a Thalia's Lieutenant and a Noble Hierarch are gonna come down properly and are gonna make this Thalia a 4-3 attacking this turn, virtually putting Franco down to 15. And honestly, the toughest decision here is whether to play around Mental Misstep or not. What counter spell you're choosing to play around. So this Noble Hierarch is actually going to get countered.
Yeah,
Um,
which is kind of crazy to think about it, right? Like you've got a Cavern of Souls, you kind of like expect none of your creatures to get interacted with here, but like this is the literal probably only target in the deck for Franco to resolve this hierarch Mental Misstep on. So you take what you can get when you can get it. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, you got to figure out what you want to play around and what you don't want to play around. And I mean, I think playing around a Mental Misstep is generally not the move.
It's restricted, right? So like obviously like when you get got by a Mental Misstep, it feels really bad, but those are the things that like when you play vintage, you just learn to like either A, live with it because sometimes it happens, or B, you learn to play around it. And in this situation, like I think I understand exactly where Justin's coming from, right? Because the Thalia's Lieutenant is probably going to deal more damage over the course of time than like the Noble Hierarch will. Plus you have more copies of Noble Hierarch in your hand, so might as well try to get rid of the Mental Misstep, like trade that resource away rather than, lose potential Thalia's Lieutenant to like a Force of Will or something.
Definitely. But then again, I mean, if you yeah, then again, yeah. I mean that was definitely the right play because the Thalia the turn before came down with um Thalia came down with Cavern of Souls, so it had that protection.
Yep.
So you actually aren't able to decipher if you've beaten a force or not. Um in this deck, would you consider forcing Moxes?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, right? Because you know that none of the disruptive pieces are at CMC 1 or 0 or whatever it is. Everything is kind of expensive. I mean, the problem is that Force of Will secretly doesn't feel that good in this list. I mean, you still want to keep it just in case there isn't a Cavern draw. There's so many cards in this deck that, like, as the Breach player, you don't want to see on the other side of the table, right? Like, you don't like seeing these Thalias. By the way, big sad. Wait. Oh, this is crazy. Okay, so we found a second Thalia, and now we're playing two Thalias to get more damage in. And this looks like Zio is going to go all the way down to 1 here. And
No, it's lethal.
it's legit
Yeah,
just lethal.
because two Thalias were played, and I feel like that was one of the scenarios where you would want to play both Thalias because it exactly presented lethal
Yeah,
because the exalted triggers.
which is actually just terrifying, right? This is a turn 4 win from a deck that doesn't have any like broken combos or insane card draw. It's just anti-meta, and it's just saying, hey, I know how you build your deck in and out, and honestly, you deserve to get punished for it. Here's the punishment, right? So Justin's going to take game 1. Let's take a look at sideboarding for game 2 here as we see a couple cards in the sideboard for Franco. We see Bright Dragon, we see Shattering Spree, Ravenous Trap, and Surgical Extraction. Basics.
Tabernacle.
And Tabernacle, yeah.
We see 2 tabernacles, not one. Just like an easy $2,000 just thrown on the screen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, Tabernacle is a card that could potentially swing this matchup. Not to mention that the other side gets to get rid of 4 Pyroblasts. So I think this matchup is going to be a lot closer post board.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. I mean, the Tabernacles are likely in there just for decks like Dredge and Hollowvine, right? Being able to stop creatures when, you can't use them. Use Bazaar to pay for mana or whatever it is. But I do think it'll have a little bit of application in this matchup here. At least my gut reaction is that it'll slow down Justin just enough that maybe we can get something rolling with these Underworld Breach combos, or maybe get like a Mentor into play and ride that to victory, or just like, Xerox our way into victory here, right? On the other side of the table, though, I want to take a look at Justin's deck. Now, this sideboard seems a lot scarier because every single card is a banger.
Yeah, I mean, Deafening Silence, Force of Vigor, Collector Oof. Collector Oof is one of the cool cards that you get to play. Almost a main deckable card, in my opinion.
Yeah, we've actually seen Collector Oof main decked in some capacity one way or another.
What's the card under Collector Oof? I don't recognize that art.
That is 3 copies of Containment Priest.
Oh, I've never seen that art before. I would have guessed that's an artifact based on the art.
Yeah. It does look pretty incredible, right? So, 3 copies of Containment Priest. Not that good in this matchup. But, I mean, like, a lot of the other cards are pretty good here. You got, like, Force of Vigor and Surgical Extractions and things like that. And looks like we're ready for game number 2 here. This hand is a lot more busted by Franco.
Yeah, I mean, and you have a more ordinary hand from Justin, right? Like a turn 1 champion of the parish into... I mean, it's going to start off with Once Upon a Time, so we're going to see what actually comes down. I guess a Noble would come down beforehand. But this hand has no Cavern, and if there was a mental misstep, it would surely punish.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, I kind of like Franco's hand a lot. You might want to mulligan the second hand because there's no acceleration. But yeah. Sorry, I'm taking care of one thing's end. Let me know what you think about the first few turns and how. Like, would you mulligan this hand?
No, I don't think you can afford to mulligan from either player. I mean, obviously, Franco's hand is busted. Justin's hand is good, not great, but the fact that you have a 1-drop and you have card selection and being able to find a Thalia on turn 2, I don't think you can pass that up. Right, the once just has like it has all of the card selection that this deck is able to offer. So I don't think you pass that up pretty much ever, unless you know your opponent's hand. But yeah, I mean, it seems as though like both players have had their nut starts. I mean, Franco's is probably the nuttiest so far, but I mean, this potentially still a game 3 to be played, and I think that's the more exciting and more important part.
Yeah, no, this is this is vintage, baby. Like, look at that hand that Franco's got, right? Like, I'm excited to see like maybe turn 1, Mox into Ancestral. You don't have to worry about any of the crazy stuff that might be coming out of like normal blue decks. Like, your Ancestral Recall is going to resolve. So you just like fire that baby off, draw a bunch of cards there, and then you get to keep continuing with like Preordain and things like that. And like, heaven forbid if Franco draws like Underworld Breach or a Black Lotus, like you may be able to go deep.
Oh, wow. And look at that discipline. A mulligan into a way better 6. A Collector Oof on turn 2, or a Sanctum Prelate on a Collector Oof on turn 1, or a Sanctum Prelate on turn 1.
right? And that is so crazy. Just think about that, right? Like Collector Oof is already going to be insane here. You probably just lead on the Sanctum Prelate because if you play the Collector Oof, then what? Your artifacts all get turned off. So you can even Cavern it out too, which is just insane.
Yeah, but I mean, this is kind of scary because oh my god, why not play both? Why not?
Yeah, that's so true. Like when you get these busted starts, like this is what I'm talking about. Like this is vintage, baby. And you might be thinking like, okay, wait a minute. Black Lotus to put a 2/2 into play doesn't really sound that great. But when you look at the way that decks are crafted in this format, you have to understand that these bears are actually just substantially more powerful than they look, right? Because all the decks are just like explosive in one way or another, right? And to prohibit them, you really have to go all the way through and through and have every single possible piece that you possibly be able to play if you're trying to like shut a deck down, right? So here we're going to see the Collector Oof come down, turns off any Black Lotuses or Mox Pearls or even that Mox Sapphire that's in play. And then the Sanctum Prelate is going to be on 1 right now, so that means no more Lightning Bolts to take care of the creatures, no more Brainstorm or Ponder, which are both restricted in the format, or even any of those preordains that we saw. So this is kind of scary.
I mean, definitely a scary spot, but I mean, Franco's hand still has a lot of 2 and 3 drops, and that Dak Faden is going to be able to filter this hand. I mean, it's not going to be able to do it this turn, but it will be able to filter the land. And also, don't forget that the combo is very much alive. Brain Freeze and Black Lotus and what do you call it? Lotus Breach are not affected by what's going on. Actually, I lied. Black Lotus gets hit.
Yeah, Collector Oof is going to be very good at shutting down the combo here, but you're right that like there's still going to be an avenue here as we see Merchant Soul goes on the stack here. Targets are Brain Freeze, Brainstorm, Dig Through Time, Force, and Gush. We're going to pick up a copy of Dig Through Time here to pair up perhaps with the Dak Faden. And I mean, at this point, I guess you just keep going, right? Maybe like the Dig Through Time can find something like a Tabernacle. That'd be pretty good here, just to at least stem the bleeding, prevent any extra, threats from coming into play here. But it really does look like, if I'm looking at the deck list correctly, Franco needs to either draw into a copy of Monastery Mentor, or B, a copy of Teferi Time Raveler. Let's go.
Let's go. That's just +2 mana this turn if need be. But if I had to guess, I mean, Dak Faden is most likely to come down this turn.
Yeah, I wanted also one important thing that I forgot was that not only do these creatures prison out, shutting down the artifacts and anything that has CMC1, but they also go to the dome. You know what I'm saying? So they also end the game, and 4 points of power on turn 1 is not a joke. Like a couple turns later, I feel like if this game was the other way around, where Justin was on the play, I don't know if there would have been any chance. But given the play draw dynamic, we're in game 2 here, Franco might be able to leverage that extra mana to maybe get like Dak Faden in sooner, Teferi in sooner. Here is kind of interesting. Do you go for the Dak Faden or the Teferi?
I think you go for the Dak Faden because in an ideal world, what you would like to find is a bolt.
Mm-hmm.
And what you could do is play Teferi, bounce the Sanctum Prelate, dealing with the Collector Roof.
Okay.
And don't forget, we still have Tabernacle in the deck, so that can really tax Justin moving forward.
Sure.
So I guess there's going to be a Dig Through Time this next turn, and that may be better.
Yeah, Dig Through Time is actually kind of an interesting option here because, right, like you're saying, Dak Faden gets you through the top 2 cards of your library, and now Franco's saying, you know what? Screw that. I want to see the top 7 cards. Make sure I really get to maximize my selection in this turn because, there might not be a turn after the Dak Faden. Or the turn after that. Like, every turn matters, and the amount of cards that you see is also very, very important here. So I kind of like this play a lot, actually, as we have the perfect amount of cards to delve away here.
Yeah, I actually like this play more. Just more card selection. It was, if I'm correct, Dak Faden starts off at 5.
No, God, no. If only
No.
I think it starts. It's one of the more balanced planeswalkers. It starts off at 3, ticks up
3
to
goes
4.
to 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't even go to 5. Okay, for some reason I thought it ticked up to 5, and I was like, okay, that means it like fogs and sticks around, so it's a much better card. Yeah, no, it's way too fair.
Okay, so I'm looking at the dig through time right now, and I'm seeing a Black Lotus, a Lavinia, Mountain, Mox Jet, Mystic Sanctuary, Tabernacle, and Volcanic Island. So a couple lands. Tabernacle is an important one. There's also a Lavinia, which is not nothing, right? You could put the Lavinia into play just as a 2/2 blocker. Now, the crazy part is that, Justin actually just top decked a Palace Jailer, so taking the Lavinia and blocking with that would be max punished. But otherwise, maybe you take the Lotus and something else here. It's hard to say.
I actually like taking the Lavinia plus the Tabernacle. So the way you can set up your turn is play Teferi, bounce the Collector Roof, play Mox Pearl, play Lavinia, play Tabernacle, and then pass the turn. And that taxes the Sanctum Prelate and puts you in a good spot.
Yep.
Well, it's going to be a similar line. Because Black Lotus is going to allow much more mana, a much more explosive turn.
Yeah, agree. So, yeah, I mean, this turn feels like everything will start with playing something like the Teferi or the Dak Faden here. I mean, playing Dak Faden after you put so many cards into your hand off of dig through time must feel great, because then you get even more selection, or just even more like options in terms of what you can keep and what you can't keep. And I think that's one of the reasons why Vintage is just so insane, is because your cards, you just get to draw so many cards. Like, there is nothing more that I like than just going like predict myself, and like ending the game with like no deck but like 10 cards in my hand. And in Vintage, you don't even have to work for it. I mean, you have to like make sure your Ancestral resolves, obviously. But okay.
Oh, I mean, there's a Cavern still on the field, but
yeah,
I mean, finding that bolt is
big
very,
game,
very
right?
strong.
Big game.
Yep, I love this.
And so we're going to see Mox Pearl and Gataxian Probe go to the graveyard, saying that we have Teferi for this soft lock or whatever it is, and Lightning Bolt. The Force of Will doesn't look too appealing to me, but maybe you can pitch the Lavinia in a pinch here. And another Cavern of Souls. Oh, wow. Okay, so this was an end-step cycle of the Horizon Canopy. I feel like I would have maybe held the land here, but I trust Justin for sure, understanding what's important in the matchup, maybe not the Palace Jailer.
Yeah, I like cycling it. Once a creature wasn't played, I think not cycling the land was definitely correct. Because I mean, like, if you hit another land into a Sanctum Prelate or find a Thalia, it's gonna go a long way. Yeah, and I mean, this Wasteland isn't nothing. It's definitely still a very powerful threat.
Yep.
And it's just attacking face. This is a pretty scary turn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of 2-drops in Justin's deck that we can take a look at, like, Dark Confidant. We've got Thalia. We've got Thalia's Lieutenant.
Oh my god. And it's game?
Is it? Sanctum Prelate on 1 doesn't stop the combo here, so if you just bolt... Oh, but it does stop the Lightning Bolt.
No,
but
so you go Teferi, bounce the Collector Oof, play Black Lotus, Underworld Breach, Gush. And that's game.
Oh my goodness. Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's game.
Wait, did we bounce the... Oh, yeah, this is fine too. This is fine too. Yes.
Yeah, now you play the Black Lotus.
Black Lotus. Yep. We need to make sure that we have a land that we can fetch. No, we don't even need a land to fetch off of the Scalding Tarn, because the Lotus can just crack for red, but we do have another Volcanic Island anyways. And yeah, this is it. This is just combo central here.
Yeah, this is combo. And we have a game 3.
This is actually disgusting. I want to remind you, Zed, that this game started with Black Lotus. Yeah.
A turn 1 Sanctum Prelate into turn 1 Collector.
And you want to know something even crazier, Zan? Is that like what? Franco is exactly for life. What I was saying earlier, if Justin was on the play this game, he would have been able to take it 100%, right? Because that would have been one more combat step, easily something within range.
But that's why you play these crazy blue decks, because you draw so many cards, you see so many cards that you can find yourself getting out of crazy situations like this one.
Yeah, and I love that about Vintage. That's what makes me so happy about the format. It's just like you can just go like Ancestral Recall. Okay, I drew my deck. All right, now I'm going to slap you silly with a ham sandwich until you concede. And I mean, that's not exactly what happened here with the Breach combo, but like, honestly, like it could have been a lot of things. And we're going to see that Justin actually conceded in response to the brain freeze to hide some sideboarding information. And I like that a lot, right? Because you're deterministically dead at this point. Justin's played a lot of Vintage, knows the combo. But
Yep.
Taking a look at the sideboard again here, what's interesting to me is that I see that Justin has chosen not to board in any copies of Force of Vigor and has also chosen not to board in any copies of Surgical Extraction. How do you feel about that? The Deafening Silences did come in. The Collector Oofs did come in, but that's it. Only 4 cards have come in. So do you agree with that?
I agree with that. I do agree with that. So the Force of Vigors, they seem like overkill when you already have cards like Collector Roof, Thalia, and Sanctum Prelate taxing those cards. And then looking at Deafening Silence, I agree that Deafening Silence should come in. And looking at Surgical, there's oftentimes in a deck like this that you don't have a specific thing that you want to Surgical. Yeah, you can hit one of the combo pieces, but your deck is already doing such a good job working around those cards or working to like oppress those cards that you don't need to bring in a card that gives you card disadvantage, right? Like this deck only has like one way to get card advantage, and that's Dark Confidant or Palace Jailer, right? Which isn't a whole lot. So when you bring in Force of Vigor and Surgical, it really does affect how much like how much card advantage you have.
Yeah, and I want to give an update to people who are wondering about the rest of the event here. We see Yama Killer, has won 2-1 against Amir. So that's Dredge winning 2-1 over Jeskai Control for the Vintage community. Amir did top 8 one of the Eternal Weekend events this year, which is super exciting. And then also we have Ryan Haddad, aka Slasher, on Jeskai Control, winning 2-0 over MTGO Saturn, who was playing 5-color combo. Bring it back into the game here as players round out this final game 3, and that is an incredible card that I see already in Franco's hand here. But before we even get into that, take a look at Justin's hand.
It's equally as incredible. Look how much mana that is.
Yeah. But this is what we saw before in game 2, right? Where Justin had a hand that had a lot of mana, but not a lot of relevant interaction here. So I would not be surprised to see Justin actually just mulligan this hand, find something a bit more terrifying along the lines of like the Thalia, the Collector Oof, Deafening Silence. Okay.
Okay. It come down on turn 1 though? Is that a Mox? That's a Mox Jet. It does not come down on turn 1.
So Mox Jet and Cavernous Soul is not going to cast.
But a turn 1 Collector Roof, but you got to sacrifice your Cavernous Souls.
Right. So it's kind of an interesting situation here. I guess maybe you just have to take the L. I think you have to keep this hand because it's got a lot of good stuff going on in it, Deafening Silence and Collector Oof. But I think you may have to take the L on the turn 1 and just go for the Noble Hierarch and just hope that your opponent doesn't have some sort of insane busted vintage hand. And, like I mentioned, it can happen sometimes, right? Like we did see Franco had the Ancestral Recall in game 1, but that's not the norm most of the time, right?
Yeah.
The restriction list keeps it so that you're not going to be dying to broken cards that often. So I would really like to see the turn 1 Noble Hierarch so that we can get maybe the Deafening Silence out on turn 2, which I think is really good, or maybe the
Confidant, maybe the Confidant.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be a great turn 2 play, which is Dark Confidant and Deafening Silence. Get some gas going, draw some cards here, and then create that sort of snowball that we saw in game 1 with the Thalia on turn 1. Instead, maybe like relying on Deafening Silence and Collector Oof to do the work, the heavy lifting.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, this is a great hand from both sides. The Monastery Mentor is like one of those cards that like creates like a totally different game pattern, and so I'm like just excited to see how this plays out. I mean, the Preordained didn't do very much; it just found another land. So, I mean, the ball is in Justin's court, and it looks like it's about to be a nutty one.
Yeah, Lotus Petal kind of solid here. I mean, that might let you power out something like Collector Oof and Dark Confidant instead here, but looks like we're going to go for the Deafening Silence instead here, which means we probably have to play the Dark Confidant since we can no longer play the Lotus Petal. If we play Collector, we can't even cast the Collector. Either way, not a problem. But okay, wait a minute.
Oh, wow.
That's such a good draw here.
That's an incredible draw.
And, unfortunately for Franco, there's only lands in the tank here, but Monastery Mentor is extremely good.
Extremely, it's so scary. I mean, it could come down next turn and have an effect on the game, right? Like just even recasting Preordain is putting another power onto the board that could swing the game.
Now, fortunately, Justin does have a copy of Deafening Silence to stop any crazy shenanigans, which means that Franco's going to have to draw into some copy of like Teferi again, like we saw earlier, to maybe like bounce the Deafening Silence and then pop off with something like an Underworld Breach. I'm going to take a look at Franco's list and see if there are any other outs in particular to something like this Deafening Silence.
Yeah. If there was like a blast zone type of effect, it would be definitely really good.
Yeah, Engineered Explosives doesn't seem to be in this list, and I actually don't see any out to the Deafening Silence outside of the Teferi, because the sideboard appears to be 3 copies of Sprite Dragon and then maybe like 4 Shattering Sprees, which is, a nod to Shop's decks, but not going to be good here against Deafening Silence for sure.
And I love this play. Just get the Collector Roof out there.
Yeah, build the board. Go big.
Get the wasteland out there. Just limit your opponent's options.
Yeah.
And another land. This is not what Franco was hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, in this situation, like you just got to deploy your non-basics. I think maybe just play the mountain out and then hope for the best here. I mean, like you're so close to having something, but the Deafening Silence, and now like on top of that, you get the Collector Oof. It just feels like it's slowly getting out of control, where these like cheap 1 mana, 2 mana like beaters that don't really do too much are gonna perhaps take over the game here. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this game is over, so this might be a good opportunity to ask you. So what did you have for lunch?
What? Actually, today I haven't had lunch yet here. I've actually got. I'm a huge Taco Bell fan, Zan.
Oh my god!
I know. I've actually got my Chalupa Supreme here. And
oh my god, what meat? What meat?
I don't like Taco Bell chicken. I'll be straight up with you. So I usually just get like the stock beef or whatever. I mean, I've tried the steak too, and it's like fine.
You have the stock beef. Have you heard that the stock beef is what they feed dogs?
Okay, well, you know what? I love dogs, so I might with it.
What?
Taco Bell just makes me happy, dude. I don't know. There's something about
No, I have nothing opposed to Taco Bell. I'm just saying.
Okay.
You can't get the beef.
What do you get then?
I mean, all right. They have a black beans option now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can replace all of it with black beans. Another broken strategy, if you're like, don't care about your health that day, is you can replace the meat with, have you ever had, like their tots? Like those potato bites?
Oh, no way.
You can replace it with potatoes.
Wait,
these are some, I can teach you some brown Taco Bell tricks, bro.
Dude, okay, wait a minute. I thought I knew what was going on, and then suddenly Franco draws a Tabernacle and is just like, maybe I've got a chance back into this game here, as we see like a little bit of damage come across. Sanctum Prelate also going to be in play now.
But we knew the wasteland was there, so it never really mattered.
Yeah, okay. And you know what? I wonder if that means that Franco was supposed to like bait the wasteland by playing like a volcanic island out in anticipation of like a Tabernacle top deck. But this is like a tried and tested strategy in Vintage, where your opponent plays Tabernacle, but you sandbag a wasteland in play for a long time, so that like on their end step before your upkeep, you can like tag the Tabernacle with your wasteland. We'll see that done very commonly by a bunch of dredge decks. In fact, I bet Yama in Yama's deck, we'll see some copies of Wasteland or Strip Mine in the sideboard just to play around that sort of interaction here. And yeah, I mean, at this point, we see just what is this card even called? Howlpack Alpha? Okay. Yo, I'm telling you, Zen, Howlpack Alpha doesn't go to Taco Bell and get black beans, okay? Like, look at this guy. This guy just straight up eats everything, including Franco's life total, because he's down to 7 now with 4 lands in hand. I gotta tell you, this game kind of feels pretty over.
Bro, I am so disappointed in your Taco Bell game.
What are you? Okay, whoa. Okay, that's not even my goat. I just got this because I was feeling like spicing it up. I'll tell you my secret. This is my top
I'm
tier.
ready. What is your actual Taco Bell order? I'm ready.
My actual top tier Taco Bell order is pretty simple. It's just a bean burrito, okay?
Yes.
Light on the beans, so easy beans. Add extra red sauce. Add some extra cheese, and yeah, that's it. It's super simple. It's super delicious. When you get like a lot of the bean flavor out, it's nice. It's really nice.
Oh my god, dude. Oh my god. I'm so sad right
We're gonna
now.
have an executive Lotus Box meeting after today's Octagon to talk about this. But in the meantime, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 creatures in play for Justin, and just a lonesome Monastery Mentor with a token on the other side. The token that
And everything is locked up. Everything is locked up.
Yeah.
Once Sanctum Prelate hit 3, it's not like Franco is playing towards a terminus. There
Yeah.
just aren't there are no outs of the situation.
That's crazy. And this other Sanctum Prelate here is going to name 2. So that just means, I mean, like at this point, it doesn't
1, 2,
matter.
3.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you draw here, Franco. You literally cannot cast any of your spells here. And I stand corrected. There's a gush. There's a gush. That is something that you could do here. I wonder if it's just better off to use it as maybe like a surprise blocker. Like as a combat trick here, because it's one of the very few cards that you could actually cut. I guess now that we think about it, you could maybe draw into like something like
Tabernacle.
Yeah.
But there's a wasteland on the other side.
I was gonna say something like Dig Through Time. That card is technically still online, but like and you can see here, right? Like Franco sheepishly says, I offer you my volcanic island. You know you want to take it. And Justin's like, no. There's only one. Well, maybe we take the volcanic island at this point, but Justin's like, I see blood. I want to get rid of exactly Tabernacle. No other card really matters on this board state. That's just good gameplay. And yeah,
I mean maybe it's just time to swing for lethal. Just say Sanctum Prelates, help me accomplish my goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of just crazy. It's kind of crazy that we sort of just saw how like this game went out of control so fast here, right? Like Mentor is one of the few cards, especially when you pair it with Black Lotus and get it down on turn 1 or 2. But Deafening Silence on turn 1 is one of the reasons to play a deck like this, right? Because it just wins against so many matchups on the spot here, like Underworld Breach being one of them. You know, I know, Zan, you played, what was it, the Mono Blue Belcher deck for a while?
Yeah.
Like, I know you wouldn't want to see something like Belcher on the other side of the table there, right? So we're going to try something here, as I don't think the other match has been reported yet. So I want to see if we can get another match going on. Let's see. So that would be Jay Pinter against Stacko. And we're going to go straight to that, actually.
By the way, we just got a report. So the other co-host, Ved, also just got Taco Bell.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Twins reported.
My goodness. Yo, Taco Bell's what's up though. I definitely, and when they added Taco Bell to like delivery, I was about that as well. So here I'm just updating this stuff live, Zan, but this is what we're looking at right now. So it looks like we're on some sort of Helm of Obedience combo deck against what looks to be Volcanic Island and Mox Jet. And we're going to, hypothesize about what's going on, I guess.
What's going on? So there's a Vampiric Tutor being cast. I actually haven't seen the deck list for both of these decks.
Okay. Well, this is interesting. So it looks like there's a Black Lotus and a copy of Grafdigger's Cage in Jeremy's hand. And then on the other side of the table, we're going to pick that one up really quickly too, as Jay Stacko has
a Dak Faden. Wow.
Yeah, so there's
there's still a Black Lotus in play, so anything is possible. Just gotta find a actual threat to close it out.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Okay. So there's the copy of Defense Grid, which is pretty good against Dak Faden. I mean, you could take the cage, you could take the Defense Grid with Dak Faden, but that doesn't really do too much here. Playing the Lotus is kind of interesting, but I guess Dak Faden doesn't get to do too much here. Maybe we're afraid of something like Hull Breacher, coming down here, or I got to check the list here, but something like that would be pretty interesting to see from the other side of the table here. But instead, actually, Zan, guess what I'm seeing? I'm seeing some pretty crazy cards here, as Dak Faden is going to find Wear Tear, Force of Will. There's a Mox Ruby for the draw as well.
Oh my god.
And then, what else? This is some
Everything
high
is online
resolution.
right now.
Okay, ta-da! And these are the two Discord options here. Sorry, discard options here. As you've got. Let's see.
Oh,
I mean, the wear tear seems pretty good on this board state.
yeah, I mean, just getting rid of the defense grid or the Black Lotus
Mm-hmm.
just puts you in a pretty power position.
Okay. So Mystic Remora and Force of Will are going to come down to the graveyard. Mox Ruby going to come into play here, and I sort of see what's going on here, right? Like you say, this turn I just want to use my mana on casting my powerful spells rather than just holding up Force of Will in fear, because I can't even like wear tear. Well, I guess I could dump the wear tear on the defense grid, and then what after that?
That's what I was thinking. I thought it was just gonna be defense grid gone, keep the 2 blue cards.
Oh, okay. I like this instead. Kill the Helm of Obedience instead and say like, hey, I don't need this Force of Will if you have nothing threatening in play. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely not bad. But that card is pretty useless without Rest in Peace, right? I don't even know what this card does when it's activated without its combo piece.
Oh, so it'll mill a couple cards here for a certain amount of mana, and then if you find a creature, you can actually just like take it and put it into play. I'm not sure if they're okay. I guess this is a good opportunity to take a look at the deck list here that we've got going from Jeremy and from Mr. Stacko. So it looks like Jeremy's actually playing a crazy one here with Goblin Welder, I guess, control combo value with Painter Servant as well. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on in this list. This is an interesting list. I've actually, you want to know something crazy cool, Jan? Is that this is one of the very first vintage decks I ever played. I think I played it in Eternal Extravaganza. Like so many years ago, back when I was on the East Coast, and it's a pretty fun deck, honestly, because you get to like just like do a bunch of like crazy stuff right here. And I don't know if we're seeing any copies of like Goblin Engineer or like to dump stuff. No, we don't. Okay, so we just see like Duretti, Dak, Karn. Let's see, Goblin Welder, Painter Servant. There's a Sphinx of the Steel Wind, so I have to imagine we're also playing something like Tinker. And then once we play Tinker, we also get to play things like maybe Bolas' Citadel if we're feeling super crazy. That seems kind of nice. Like
Bolas' Citadel is a really scary card.
I agree.
We have Cage.
Okay, so I stand corrected. There's actually no Bolas' Citadel in this deck because instead of just doing that, instead of like killing them or tinkering them for Bolas' Citadel, we'd probably just get something like the other half of our Painter's combo, or like we have like Helm or something like that. Oh, wow. Okay, so this is like maybe like a weird 2-card Monty variant, I guess. I'm learning about this deck as I go, which is kind of fun because there's also 4 main deck copies of Leyline of the Void in this list to pair alongside the Helm of Obediences. So
what just happened?
Oh, we're just taking a look at the deck list to see what's going on here.
Okay, gotcha. Well, what's the 1 mana black card that was just drawn?
Demonic Consultation, yeah.
Which, that's Demonic Consultation.
Yeah. Which is kind of like a supercharged Divining Witch. Maybe that's like not the best. Think of like Spoils of the Vault, but like better. So the way Demonic Consultation works for anyone who's not familiar with it is, I think you exile the top 6 cards of your library, and then name a card. Never mind. Yeah. Okay, so you choose a card name, exile the top 6 cards of your library, then reveal cards until you reveal a card with the chosen name, and then you put that card into your hand, and everything else that you revealed gets exiled. So most commonly, we'll see it in tandem with something like Thassa's Oracle in Vintage, like in Doomsday, for example, where you like put Thassa's Oracle into play, get the trigger on the stack, and then once that happens, you can cast Demonic Consultation, and then exile your whole graveyard by naming like, I don't know, Play of the Game or something, and then the Oracle trigger resolves and wins. In this situation, we're going to use it to get actual value cards like, it looks like we named Goblin Welder here, which I kind of like. We can weld away something like the Grafdigger's Cage. Actually, that's kind of interesting. Rulings question here, Zan. If you have Goblin Welder in play, can you weld away Cage to bring back a Painter Servant?
It says choose target And you have to sacrifice it as part of the cost, right?
No, I don't think so. No. So it's not a sacrifice ability.
It's a replacement effect. Is it like exchange?
No, it just happens on the resolution.
Interesting. I mean, it must work. Otherwise, why would we be seeing Cage, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could maybe like do a two-way about it where we just get rid of get rid of the Grafdigger's Cage, get Black Lotus or Helm of Obedience, and then get rid of the Helm of Obedience and buy back Painter Servant or some like weird situation. But it looks like Narset's actually just going to find a copy of Underworld Breach here with a Black Lotus in play and a reasonably stacked graveyard. I'm seeing.
But there's a Cage in play. So.
Right, exactly. So Cage is going to be pretty solid at stopping anything from progressing here.
Yeah, I mean, if Painter Servant comes back, I mean, we could see the end of the game next turn.
Okay, so from here, you just have to wonder maybe what are the top decks?
Wait, why was Underworld Breach cast?
Good question. Perhaps I'm missing something.
I think it was a mistake.
No worries. We'll see how the turn plays out here. I want to take a look at Jay Stacko's list a little bit more and just see what exactly this is. So I know that there's been recent videos by like LSV on some sweet Underworld Breach deck lists that have just like how to play the deck and like some cool lines that you have with the combo. Yeah, and it just looks like Underworld Breach is going to go to the graveyard. Grafdigger's Cage is going to shut that one down. But yeah, this is actually a sweet build of the deck, actually, because I see 2 copies of Mystic Remora in the main deck alongside the 2 Night's Whisper. And I told you already, Zan, that I love drawing me some cards with Predict, and Night's Whisper is pretty close to that.
What? The 2 life matters so much in other formats. You know that card is modern legal? Can you name the modern deck that I have played in the past that played Goryo's Vengeance?
I mean,
I just named the deck.
Is the name of the deck Night's Whisper?
No, it's Goryo's Vengeance.
Nice. And then
I'm trying to figure out where we are. All right, so there was a misstep made last turn, and now.
Okay, I'm gonna call this deck Welder Control because I don't really know what else to call it, but or maybe I should just call the deck Welder. I'm sure like someone who plays a lot more Vintage might know the appropriate name for this, whether that be something crazy like just like a fan favorite name from the format or the players of the format, or if there's actually some sort of like proper name for it. But we're gonna go with Welder Control here, and hey, that's a pretty good one, Narset. Thank you for picking up Merchant Scroll into Ancestral Recall. Okay, wait, those are not very good draws though. But Dak Faden.
Zach Faden. There's a lot of card selection, but finding nothing. Found a Bolt. That's actually very good.
Yeah. Bolt feels very good on this spot because the Welder just seems so scary here. I guess the Welder is active, right? It's not summoning sick anymore, so we might be able to buy back something crazy, but I
mean, honestly, the clock is a factor right now.
Yeah, that's true. We do want to be able to end the game here. Also, I mean, I guess there's a Merchant Scroll in the graveyard, so at some point you could Merchant Scroll for Brain Freeze if you wanted to finish the game on the spot here. This is going to force the Welder activation. What do you buy back? Do you get the Painter Servant, the Helm of Obedience, or Black Lotus?
It depends on which... Wait, that's not going to work, is it?
Okay, so this is interesting. So we're getting back the Helm of Obedience here, and then we're targeting Jay Stacko, and that is so cool. So the Mystic Sanctuary actually puts the Ancestral Recall back on top of Jay Stacko's deck, and then, in response, Jeremy just says, hey, I don't want you to draw that card. I've heard it's pretty good. And,
oh my.
Oh, it's such a shame that you can't cast this card.
Yeah.
Wow. Leyline of the Void and Helm of Obedience work pretty well together. The way that Helm of Obedience reads is that you basically want to mill cards until you put a creature card into the graveyard, but if Leyline is in play, you can never actually put any of those cards into the graveyard, so you just go through the entire deck, and so it's basically like a very fast combo kill here, and that's a Braid and Force of Will. I think that's what Joseph was trying to find here. A way to handle the graph
Yeah.
digger cage?
Yeah, I mean this should take care of all of the problems. I mean, you only have 22 cards left in deck. You gotta assume at some point you're gonna start drawing gas,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're faithless looting every single turn and your deck doesn't find anything, did you build your deck correctly?
I like the way you say that. It's so insidious, but wow. We went after the helm again.
Wow. We found another combo piece.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of the problem with a deck like 2-card Monty is, right? Like you have one A plus B combo, and then you have like one C plus D combo. So what happens when you draw like A and D or like B and C, the two pieces that don't go too well together? You're just gonna have like a little bit of like this, but okay. Demonic Tutor is also pretty good here.
Oh my.
And yeah, I mean, it looks like Joseph says
I mean,
enough is enough.
Let's finish the game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's gonna be some mills on one side, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know if it's going to be that close. Like, Grindstone can activate right now because the Mishra's Workshop can't pay for the Grindstone activations here. And then...
does it cost 3?
It does cost 3 to activate, yeah. And there's only the Mana Confluence in play. And, Mana Confluence is even trickier to use when you have only 16 life facing down, a loaded shotgun, basically, right?
Yeah, and this game is over. I mean, Dak Vaden takes the only win condition, and there's a Force of Will in hand. This is gonna be quick.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can hardcast 1 forest. We have Dak Vaden to do some more stuff. And that's interesting. Did we not activate Dak Vaden here? Just paying respect to the Grindstone. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, well, Trinisphere a little bit too late here as the mana base has been very solidly developed here by Joseph. So the question here is, does Jeremy still play it? Jeremy says yes. And I kind of like this Force of Will here. Oh, wow, that's interesting. We're actually alt casting it.
Interesting.
Okay. Right, so the Dak Vaden actually ended up taking the Grindstone last turn, so there's not even really that much of a threat there.
Yeah. And, I mean, this should be game.
Mm-hmm.
Cast that.
Yep. You can smash the Graph Digger's Cage or the Defense Grid. Oh,
Or the Mox.
Force of Will cost 8 mana because of the Defense Grid, so we actually had to alt cast it, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Swing in for 3 + 6, 9. Cast the Brain Freeze. Target anybody that gives more Mentor Prowess triggers, and then that should just be enough to cross that 12-point line there.
And there we have it. Now we should have a top 4.
Okay, yeah, excellent. So, I don't know, that was kind of nice that we got to see 2 matches. I'm going to say in terms of, like, my own development, like, in, like, how we're working with this stuff, getting to see 2 matches in one round and not having to, like, wait like we did in some of the earlier Octagons is, like, pretty awesome. Plus, we got to see a couple other decks that we normally get to see here. So, we do see that Underworld Breach does make it into the top 4 of this event. We've already got Justin Gennari with, what is that deck called again? It's like the Humans deck with Collector Oof and all the good humans, I guess. And then also we've got Yama Killer on Dredge, and then we have Slasher playing Jeskai Xerox. So we're going to see what the pairings look like in a little bit, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with round number 2. See ya. All right, and we're back with some more vintage action for you guys here. Our round 2 feature match is going to start with Yama Killer on Dredge against Justin Janari on the Humans deck that we got to saw absolutely dismantle the Underworld Breach deck at the hands of Franco in games 1 and 3. Games 2 was really, really close where, Justin was just about to cross the finish line, and then Franco was like, no, here's my removal spells, and here's my combo. Now, the question is, the dynamic feels like it's going to change a lot. You want to take a look at Decklist real quick, Zan?
Yeah, let's go over Decklist.
So, this is what Yama Killer has decided to bring to the table. Vintage Dredge. And I know you played a lot of Modern, so you know what Modern Dredge looks like. You may even know what Legacy Dredge looks like. But Zan, what surprises you in this list as someone who's like learning Vintage in the format? What do you like about this? And, what do you notice that's especially powerful?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to talk about Bazaar of Baghdad. You got 4 copies of those. That is like the heart and soul of the deck. And that's like the really scary part because you have a land that just activates your entire deck. And on top of that, you have like this Mulligan engine and Serum Powder, which allows you to find Bazaar of Baghdad more often because you're able to mulligan more efficiently and more freely. And then you have like this whole, it's like a control dredge deck, which is kind of unusual. Like in Modern, you don't really see that control aspect because you don't have cards like Force Will. But in this format, counterspells seem to be the name of the game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting, and I feel like this deck, especially like in game 1, I feel like Dredge is just like the best deck to be playing because you basically just like never lose, right? Like it's so hard to interact with the amount of like power and toughness that you can get into play, and like just like the overall speed of this deck, like with a card like Bazaar. I don't even think that I think Humans is not really an exception to that. Just in the sense that you don't really have like the necessary requisite tools, right? Like to beat Dredge, you actually just have to rely very, very, very heavily on your sideboard, right? To have, just cards like Surgical
Cage,
Extraction. Yeah, exactly.
Rest in
Cage,
Peace.
Leyline, etc., etc. And, I would be, oh man, I don't think the other side of the matchup is going to be pretty good here. So let's take a look at Justin's list and see what we've got in game 1. We've already taken a look at this list here. Do you see any interactions, Zan, that would be pretty good here? Or what kind of, let me put it this way. What has to happen game 1 for Justin to win?
We see Containment Priest and we see Surgical. But as we said, the core of the deck is in a land. So what I would assume, like the way this deck would win, is you put like an early Thalia or an early Confidant into play, and then you just Wasteland and Strip Mine those Bazaar of Baghdad's, slowing down your opponent. And then post board, you bring in the Containment Priest and Surgicals, which are going to play an essential role in getting rid of the Bazaar of Baghdad's again.
Yeah, I think it's keen to identify that Bazaar of Baghdad is the most important card in this matchup, and I think that's not that too difficult to identify either, because just how like the Dredge deck is literally built around this one card. So, I think Wasteland is going to be literally it. Maybe like what ends up happening is that Yama ends up mulliganing very, very deep to find Bazaar, and then there's a restart. Then there's like a chance for Justin to come back after that. But otherwise, I think it's going to be pretty tough here because, I'm excited to see just how powerful exactly Dredge is going to be here. As the players are almost ready to set up here, I think I want to take a look at the side where you mentioned that the critical cards are going to be Containment Priest and Surgical Extraction. But if we take a look at like sideboarding from, the Dredge side of things, is there anything that's interesting there for you?
You need to have removal spells for Containment Priest. I actually don't know what Sickening Shoal does. I'm sure it kills creatures though.
Yeah. It's removal shoal, and it's probably going to come in definitely for sure to handle cards like Containment Priest here. Looks like the players are
ready
to go here as they're going to draw their opening hands here. And I'm going to do you one solid here. I'm gonna pop out Yama Killer's Graveyard here. Dredge is always one of those things that messes with the UI and things like that. But I think it's important for us to be able to see what exactly
My
is in Yama's
God.
graveyard.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God. Look at that hand.
okay,
Look at that hand from Yama Killer. We got Bazaar plus Force backup. So I mean, I would be really scared. I mean, Yama Killer could certainly brick, but if he doesn't,
yeah. And I mean, Justin also has done very well here. So Justin's actually going to be on the play here for game one. And Justin has drawn the most important card, I think, in the matchup for game one, which is that Wasteland that we talked about, right? And now Yama does have some counterplay in the form of the Strip Mine. We'll see here if Justin actually deploys the Wasteland, opening them up to Strip Mine. He doesn't. I think that's a very smart play here. I mean, if you're in Yama's position, you just have to play the Bazaar, activate the Bazaar, and get going, you know?
yep. Bazaar can find other Bazaars as well. So I mean, this is definitely very scary. And there goes the Thug. And now we have a Dredger. So even if this Bazaar is gone, the deck is gonna just continue to grind.
Yeah. And I mean, while okay, well, I mean, what I was gonna say is that while Justin does have a copy of Wasteland to handle the Bazaar, there's not much other pressure going on, and you know, this is kind of an interesting dynamic because what we saw in game match one was that Justin was aggressively mulliganing the hand, looking for like all that sort of interaction here, instead of relying on like pressure and things like that. And here we're going to see somewhat of the same thing, right? We're saying that the champion of the parishes and all the damage stats don't matter; they'll come naturally. What I need to do is interact with my opponent and make sure that everything goes well here. And oh dang, take a look at that. So we're on the slow dredge plan here, as Golgari Thug is going to reveal a second copy of Bazaar of Baghdad and a Narcomoeba. Strip Mine comes down. I gotta say, the hand seems kind of rough from this point.
Yeah, I mean the plan is working. And I mean, if a Bazaar of Baghdad is not found, the game will end, especially now with the Sanctum Prelate being drawn.
Yeah, I definitely think we want to see another copy of Bazaar sooner rather than later. I mean, it's not like we're out of the woods yet here. Okay, it looks like Sanctum Prelate's going to be on one here. I was going to say is that if we find maybe like some copies of like Bridge from Below, we can go on like the natural discard plan here, with something like you're just like discarding the hand size, although we're kind of low on cards for that to happen. I mean, we have all these forces, but it's not really relevant to the board state here as, yeah, I mean, combo.
Oh my God. That's game. That is
Combo. Yeah, you can play the combo here. And at this point, you've got enough of a board to sort of just do what you want to do here.
Yeah, I mean, attack for 5, and then you have like this super scary threat. I mean, you have this Force of Will, you get rid of it, but still at the end of the day, you're still taking 4 a turn.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, another Thug this is definitely not the position you want to be in here. I think Yama's hand was good, but not just the nuts, right? There was nothing like a hollow one, for example, to put into play off of that. In fact, I think if Yama had one more turn with the Bazaar to activate, we could have seen a 0 mana 4/4 come into play and just like start messing things up. Very, very much so. But instead, it's the other way around here. Mayor of Avabrook going to come down, meet another Force of Will, and
I mean, it's not over just yet. If there's a Bazaar drawn this next turn, I mean, it's gonna be a game.
Okay.
Oh, and there it is.
There's the Bazaar. Yeah, this is great. This is exactly like this is the last turn that this could have happened here. And I want to make sure, like, let's do the math real quick here. If another Mayor of Avabrook comes down here, that's 3, 3, and 2. You block 3, you go down to 1 here. You need to hit still really, really well.
And there's the Confidant. But there's still a block there going down to 1, so we still have a game.
Right. Bridge from Below is going to be absolutely important to hit here. You might as well bring back maybe a copy of like an Icarid or something with the intention of milling a bridge. I don't know. This is tricky because now we're going to finally see Yama gets the first turn of as reasonably charged dredging here as far as the Bazaar decks care or go.
Yeah, I think it's essential to bring back the Icarid because you do have the Cabal Therapy.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I totally forgot that the lieutenant actually gets stronger when the mayor comes down as well. So Okay. Yeah, that's not nothing. Creeping Chill here. Gonna do its best Lightning Helix impression.
Yeah.
And then, do we have anything else coming back? Okay, there's a bridge from below. So the Cabal Therapy is turned off by the Sanctum Prelate here. But maybe there's something else that could be done. How many bridges do we flip here? Only one? Only one bridge, it seems. And that's probably not going to be enough. Yeah. And we're going to take a look at that. And that's going to be the concession here as a timely Wasteland. I mean, and when I say timely, I mean real timely, right? It had to come down on the first turn.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that hand could have amounted to nothing, but it was a lot of threats drawn right after. So that mana was like being able to be put to use.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I mean, good job identifying that I need to have Wasteland and I'm willing to keep it in spite of my hand, the rest of my hand being garbage.
Right, so looking at sideboard right now, you mentioned that Sickening Shoal is something that should come into play here, right? And it's X black black for an arcane instant that says you may exile a black card with CMC X from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Target creature gets -X until end of turn. So this is going to be a great answer to something like a Thalia that we saw in Justin's sideboard. There's also, well, let's see, there's Wasteland, there's 2 Sickening Shoals, some Force of Vigors. Actually, the more I think about this, there's not really that much to bring in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you can contemplate bringing in the Wasteland because you want to be able to Wasteland their Wastelands to protect your like your Bazaar of Baghdad.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that, but besides that, I mean, it's Sickening Shoal, and if you really want to get fancy with it, you can bring in Surgicals. But Cabal Therapy isn't that great in this matchup, so I would opt to get rid of that.
Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying here. I mean, Cabal Therapy is kind of important because it like procs your bridge from belows, right? Like you can just mill it, flash it back to sack a creature, and then get a bunch of zombies into play. So you don't want to go too low on those. But the problem is that like your opponent is just going to be jamming almost every single threat that they can play. As you know, when they can play it here, there's maybe some sub games to play, like when you're trying to beat something like Surgical Extraction. But
well, I guess the main card is probably Force of Negation. That card is probably the worst card.
Oh yeah. Force of Negation seems absolutely dookie when your opponent's playing instant speed spells that'll go off on your turn, and then there's nothing else that you really want to force otherwise. So I agree with you on that count for sure. So that seems like a nice in and out. And I don't even have time to look at Justin's sideboarding, but we did see the 5 cards that we mentioned earlier. We're gonna dive right into game 2 here as the players are gonna look at 7 cards. And I think Yama is already on a mulligan to 6 here, saying I need to find exactly Bazaar of Baghdad in my opening hand, and going down to 4 now. Yama is, but there's a Serum Powder, so we can maybe look at another 4 cards. Justin's sitting pretty happy there on the other side of the table with.
I mean, that's like the most beautiful hand I've ever seen. You got the Wasteland, you got infinite mana, so your Champion of Perish is going to be attacking for like 4, 5, 6, a bunch, and then you have Surgical for protection. So I mean, the game might be over on turn 1, right? Wasteland, Surgical, the Bazaar of Baghdad, and it's game over.
Yeah, I mean that is, I would agree with you that would be the line here, except we do have a clutch copy of Hollow One, and that is going to definitely change up the dynamic of this game, right? Like
oh my god, that is the best draw I've ever seen. Now you get to play a Champion of Perish and go toe to toe with the damage, right? So the turn looks like Wasteland, the Bazaar, Surgical it away, play a Champion of the Parish, and the next turn you can just start playing Noble Hierarchs. And your Champion of Perish is just going to be a faster clock than Hollow One could ever be.
Yeah, the lone 4/4, no lands against, I guess, like a ever-growing champion. You know what this reminds me of, Zan? When I first started playing Standard with you, like way back when we first started, you remember Naya Blitz?
Yeah,
that deck,
I love that.
That was like your kind of deck. That's the. I swear to God, that is the deck that made me learn how to hate creatures with a passion. Like this sort of stuff that we see going on here. I am not about Champion of the Parish blocking 4/4 Hollow Ones. It makes me sad inside. I mean, on the other hand, you must be like ecstatic about it, yeah?
Yeah, I'm ecstatic. I like to see creature decks prevailing, but I also like to see the other side of the coin, because I think that in order to be better at creature decks, you need to play non-creature decks. And then in order to be better at non-creature decks, you need to have play creature decks, because when you're playing the creature deck, you know exactly when you hate to get board wipe, or like you can do some fancy stuff, right? Where you can be like, I'm gonna put myself to a lower life total because I need to be more greedy in this matchup. You know, like when I'm supposed to cast my Terminus, when I'm supposed to cast my Verdict. You know, that's why I like playing both sides.
And Yama isn't one to mess around here. Yama's just gonna say, "Hey, look, man, you got the game. You beat me fair and square here," which means that we're gonna dive into another feature match here as we take a look at. What was the other match we had? Slasher playing. Was it Jeskai Xerox? And then on the other side we had
Underworld Breach.
Underworld Breach at the hands of Stacko, right? So, oops, let's go ahead and dive into that as I set things up ever so slowly.
If I knew Humans was a deck in Vintage, I would, and it was actually good, I would have I would have considered it much more. But I mean, I discounted this deck from the get go because the cards just seem like modern legal cards.
I mean, Thalia is a pain in the ass no matter where you are, whether you're playing Modern, whether you're playing Legacy, whether you're playing.
What are you talking about? All right, Thalia, when you're playing against another creature deck, is a joke. You just board it out.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I mean that's true. But like still, like I'd never want to see Thalia on the other side of the table here. And I think both players are getting started here. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on some UI stuff as we quickly want to get the hands back on, right? So
Yep. All right, so we got the classic preordain. Turn 1 from the Xerox deck.
seems pretty good. Solid opening hand. And other cards in the hand are Mental Misstep, Pyroblast, and actually a copy of Time Walk, which is powerful. I mean, obviously, maybe not necessarily on this board state, but if Ryan does draw something like a 3-drop that, you can power out ASAP, then you'd be super happy about that. So,
ooh, and a Mental Misstep on the Mystic Remorse.
Yeah, I think Mystic Remora is definitely one of those cards that you do absolutely want to Mental Misstep here. And am I going crazy?
Oh, wow. And it's a battle. Force is cast on the Mystic Remore, but you should be able to Pyroblast it. And too many lands.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Slasher's
it's not the end of the world just yet here, as I mean, you got Mystic Sanctuary. Maybe you can find a copy of like Ancestral Recall or Merchant Scroll for it or something like that, and then pop off that way. But yeah, okay, I see what's going on here. 1 second, let's go here. We're gonna watch this, and ta-da! I'm gonna get the hand here. I was wondering where the hand went, and now I see where it is. So it looks like there's a copy of Knight's Whisper and Merchant Scroll on Jay Stacko's side, on Joseph's side. So
yeah, I mean, basically both players are just trying to draw cards, and we're just trying to see who finds gas first.
yeah, no, absolutely, and that does seem like the name of the game here is basically who can outblue the other player better. And it looks like, given the hands, that right now it is in
Jay Stacko's hand, right?
Yeah, exactly, because the Knight's Whisperer gets you ahead. You've got the Mystic Remore to sort of tax on the opponent's spells here, and then I mean, the Merchant Scroll can also pick up Ancestral Recall somewhere along the way, but given the nature of the blue matchups, you definitely don't want to, be in a position where you're like playing your Ancestral Recall into a Pyroblast for free, because the card is just that valuable.
Yeah.
And it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Joseph was playing Breach, right?
Yep, Breach.
Okay, and on the other side of the table, we have Jeskai Xerox, so that's going to be pretty cool here.
Yep.
I don't know, if you had to take a look at both decks, what do you think would be favored, by the way?
If I had, taking a look at them right now. I mean, I'm always a fan of the combo finish, especially in game 1. But I mean, I would say the deck that I've lost to the most is this Jeskai control deck, the Jeskai Xerox deck. And I mean, Dreadlord Arcanist is not a card that should be messed with. So having like effects that like just pull you ahead and finish out the game, like Arcanist,
Yeah,
would make me think that 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 it's ahead.
okay. Yeah, I see. I
Yeah.
mean, Jeskai control probably. I don't know. The Night's Whispers are super sweet. Being able to draw a bunch of cards off of Night's Whisper is exactly what I want to be doing. And you see here, we've got, speaking of drawing cards, we've got Gush and Mystic Sanctuary doing some pretty nasty things here. As yeah, Gush, buy back the Mystic Sanctuary, play Time Walk, take another turn, do some cool things here. On the other hand, you've got both Mystic Remoras in Joseph's deck are now in the graveyard, which means that this is the window for Ryan to
The
cast spells.
main deck Pyroblast makes things impossible as well.
Mm.
You know, like in combination, um, with everything, it's just like it's just gonna be a huge pain to deal with this.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you here. I mean, that's part of the reason why it's in there, right? Because like when your cards are so expensive, like Ancestral Recall, when your cards are so powerful, or like even like it's just like layers, right? Like how deep do you want to go to stop your opponent from doing this? When there are only a certain limited number of strategies that are, I would say like the three hallmark strategies, right? You want to make sure that you have a plan for each of those, and at some point you just have to realize that main decking Pyroblast is the way to do it, and like this is the result, right? Like where you get to stop your opponent's offense, and now you've got this insane game here where you've got like you found a Narset, you've got Pyroblast, you drew your own Ancestral Recall,
and you have a Narset. It's just stacking on top of each other. You have this control deck that takes advantage of Mystic Mystic Sanctuary in such a broken way, and while controlling the board. Honestly, this deck is really incorporating a lot of the new tools that we find in Standard, Modern, and Legacy, right? Like Dreadhorde Arcanist is known to be a broken card in Legacy, and it's like, and then Mystic Sanctuary, what we broke it in Modern, right? Like combining all of those things together, you end up um on this deck. So I'm a big fan of Jeskai Xerox.
yeah. And so Jeskai Xerox is actually going to take this is game 2, so we're going to go into game 3 shortly here. We're 1-1, tying the score here. The winner of this game will get to play for $100, which is really freaking awesome. This is our 7th Octagon, so that means that we've dished out we're going to be dishing out $700 in prizes for like 3-round events each, which is super sweet. Before we talk about that some more, or I guess we don't even have a chance here because the player's going to dive right back in, but are there any cards that you see at a glance that are going to be good in this matchup?
I mean, at a glance, I am not seeing. You're playing against a combo deck. You can certainly bring in Mindbreak Trap. You could bring in like Ravenous Trap if you really want to deal with the graveyard. Other than that, um, yeah, I think that the Xerox deck has pretty much all the tools it needs in its main deck.
Okay.
Right, Pyroblast.
Yeah, that makes sense. You have so many of these like really good cards like Pyroblast in your main deck that you don't really want to stress out about. You don't actually have the sideboard slots to like bring down. Like you also don't have any good like too many cards to cut. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we saw maybe some of the more like strenuous cards. I don't know, like I gotta check Ryan's list just to make sure here, but there are like historically cards that you just don't play, like like Mystical Tutor, for example, is going to be not that great of a card in a grindy matchup like this. What's kind of interesting is that Ryan's actually got 2 copies of Daze in the deck. Let's see, there's a Shattering Spree that could get boarded out, and then I saw a copy of what's up.
And I was just gonna say, and I like those like 1 of 2 of copies, because in a tournament like this where everything is open deck list, you want to force your opponent to play around various things because you can bluff those various things. And in a tournament like this, you can really take advantage of some bluffs.
Yep. So Merchant Scroll is going to be pretty sweet here. You can pick up a copy of Ancestral Recall and then later buy it back with the you can buy it back later with the Underworld Breach. Instead, we're going to go for a very nice Legacy style Brainstorm. And that's going to find a copy of Mystic Remora, Red Elemental Blast, and I think the last card is a Pithing Needle, which is kind of interesting as a good way to stop down cards like Dak Faden, maybe.
Definitely, but it seems like it's going to be one of the cards to get rid of. Honestly, not the biggest fan of Brainstorm here. I felt like all the cards in our hand were bangers as is.
Mm-hmm. Would you have played something maybe like the Merchant Scroll instead?
Yeah, definitely. I think that would have been my first choice.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is kind of interesting, right? Because I feel like what we saw, like for a brief glimpse in game 2, was that like Mystic Remora was in play, but not much was really being done here as a huge pickup in Ancestral Recall comes down.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't have enough mana sources to leverage the Mystic
Yeah,
Remora, but
exactly. Like my thought process is I want to draw another land. Like I want to like my best draw next turn is a land, but I got rid of a land.
mm-hmm.
You know?
So that means then that if I'm in Joseph's position, I would finish this. The missing link in the story would be Gush, right? Because we have Gush, we may not necessarily need to have the extra lands in our hand because we'll be just redeploying the lands that we're picking up here. And no games at all. This is a Pyroblast on the Mystic Remora. That means that Joseph gets to draw a card. It's a Night's Whisper. And now, bang, Ancestral Recall. This has to get forced, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely has to get forced. But the question I have here is why not blow it up after the mana spent on it? I'm not sure exactly how the card works.
Yeah. So you're right. There is cumulative upkeep. I think this may have been just like Ryan is just trying to push forward, like with proactive plays on their turn, and then instead, there's a strict upside to making them pay the mana first. But also in this situation, red mana is tapped out, so Pyroblast can't tag the Ancestral Recall. It has to be exactly something like Force of Will. So you just take like small edges there, try to like pull ahead there while you can. And this is kind of a disgusting pickup here, as the Gush is going to bounce 2 lands and pick up Black Lotus up and a Mystic Remora up. And I gotta wonder, is that just game?
Is that just game? Well, it can't be. We have a Ravenous Trap on the other side. But there's a Force of Will.
Okay, yeah, the Night's Whisper just found a copy of Force of Will, which is going to be really good alongside this Mystic Remora.
Wait, that is, I mean, we're just missing one piece, right?
So let's see. We have 4 mana in play. We play the Underworld Breach. We have 7 cards in our graveyard. We can buy back the Merchant Scroll to pick up something like a Brain Freeze. Then we have 4 cards in our graveyard. And then we could buy back the Lotus. So technically, I think we may have been able to do it this turn, but it looks like instead we're going to play a little bit more slowly here and deploy the Monastery Mentor instead, holding up Pyroblast and Force of Will. So this is a much more defensive play that still is able to put some amount of aggression on the table here. And this is also interesting because this means that if the Underworld Breach play does fail for some reason, you still have this backup plan in Monastery Mentor.
Yeah, I love forcing this. Just putting more pressure onto the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, you still have these red elemental blasts.
Yep. Makes sense. You can shut down some of the blue cards on Ryan's side of the table. Those are the cards that really matter. We did see that in game 2, Ryan actually had a copy of Swords to Plowshares. It was likely for something like Monastery Mentor, just so that that kind of card doesn't run out of control. And this is a Ponder. I mean, what's your play? Do you Pyroblast this or you let it go?
No, it's hands down Pyroblast this.
Nice. I like that. I
have no control. I'm just like, Pyroblast the first blue thing I see.
That does sort of make me happy here. I mean, I'll let you know also that Ponder being restricted in the format means that Pyroblasting or red blasting the Ponder matters all that much more. And I think now it's just time, right?
Oh wow. Yeah, this is just game.
Yeah. You have Lotus, you have Mystic. You might not have. Oh no, I think you have exactly enough cards to combo off here, right? So you can.
Yeah, should have enough. Yeah.
Yep. You have Lotus, Underworld Breach, and then you can use the Merchant Scroll to. Oh no, did we pitch the Merchant Scroll? Oh, my mistake. Yeah, we actually ended up pitching the Merchant Scroll earlier to counter the Ancestral Recall. So there is no full combo here, but. Who needs a combo when you can use Underworld Breach and just like Lotus into a couple preordains to make a lethal?
This is what you call the damage combo.
Yeah. And this brings flashbacks. Like you were talking about how Humans was the deck that you would that sings to you. This deck, Underworld Breach, is my jam. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when it was in Legacy, I was just like turn 2 comboing people without remorse, and then like a month and a half later, like the deck got banned, and rightfully so, because that deck was so nasty. And you can sort of see like in Vintage, it's made an impact, right? That's how good this card is. Like, it's Vintage level playable. So, props.
Yeah, props to Stacko for crushing.
So from this point onwards, we have 6 cards. I think we're out of plays now. We can buy back the Lotus. That's a good one. And then maybe we can push some damage through with the Red Elemental Blast. That's 6, 5, and 5. That's 16. Red Blast anything. Oh, Red Blast the Mystic Remora. Okay. And then that's 19 points of damage off a one turn, which is pretty disgusting.
Yeah. And that should definitely be a game, because you could still bring back the Black Lotus if you needed to.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because you can then exile the Red Elemental Blast, the Night's Whisper, and the Gush, and then you should be good to go here. So we'll just wait for the motions to go through the motions, and then after that, looks like everything will be pretty solid here.
Yeah, I mean, this is just wrapping it up.
It's kind of unfortunate because I feel like Ryan just never got any momentum in this game. Like, we saw maybe it was even just the Mystic Remora drawing one extra card there to put Joseph like over the top, like trading the Pyroblast for Remora in a non-profitable way, which may have like, ended up with this specific outcome here.
Sure. Let's talk about some more important things.
Oh,
all
God.
Right. So we were talking about Taco Bell before.
Oh God.
I feel like we should talk about fast food rankings.
Fast food rankings?
Last year I spent a lot of time on the road on the East Coast, going from North Carolina to Magic Tournament to Magic Tournament to Magic Tournament. So now I have to ask you, what are your top 3 fast food joints?
Oh my God. I really wish you wouldn't have done to me like this.
And you have an obligation as a Californian to mention one.
I'll tell you this much. I'm not an In-N-Out kind of person. I'm sorry. Okay, look. In-N-Out's not bad, okay? But I like Whataburger way more. Like, I'll take a patty melt from Whataburger over anything that In-N-Out has to offer.
You're such a Texan at heart. You're such
any day of the week. Bro, it's Whataburger. They got better fries. They got better burgers. Like, the ketchup is better. Like,
bro, their fries are too fat and they do not taste good.
Are you talking about In-N-Out?
No, I'm talking about Whataburger.
No way, dude.
Yeah, dude.
All right, so
I've literally had it in the same day. All right, literally get to the Dallas airport. There's a Whataburger in the airport. All right, then you drive to the convention center, and there's an In-N-Out right there. So I've had it in the same day. Not healthy, but I could clearly tell which fast.
I mean, I see that you're putting down the evidence, but we're just gonna have to agree to disagree here. I think I'd also put Taco Bell in my top 3. I'd put Whataburger up there, and then maybe like Shake Shack.
Have you had Cookout?
Huh?
Have you put Cookout? Where do you put Cookout?
I haven't had Cookout before. What is that? Is that something that Oh my God.
My God.
The way you're talking right now makes me feel like I messed up here for sure.
Cookout, man, that's the fast food of the South.
Damn.
It's like the best. It's the best value for sure.
Okay.
I think it's a little overrated, and I'm pretty sure people of the South are gonna kill me for that. But yeah, it's on par with In-N-Out and Whataburger. Like, those are like 3 different parts of the country.
Yeah.
And you don't have Chick-fil-A on your top 3?
I mean, it tastes good, but like I just haven't had it in a while for reasons. And then like it's pretty good, but I would say like I'd pick Taco Bell over it, and then I would also pick Whataburger. I'd also pick Shake Shack over it. Yeah, actually that's true. Yeah, all 3 ways. Yeah, actually, 100%. So
respectable. Whataburger is not even in my top 5. I'm sorry.
Damn, dude, that's kind of toxic. So it looks like we're setting up for the finals right now, hence why we're talking about this tier list. I kind of want to know what people in the chat think, like whether or not they actually believe that I'm wrong, because like Taco Bell is pretty high.
I'm up there.
Yeah. Hmm. There's so many tier lists that like I'd fight you over. Like, what's your favorite cereal?
Um, I would say if I could have any cereal right now, it would be French Toast Crunch.
French Toast Crunch? What?
You've never had it?
No, I was gonna say Cinnamon Toast Crunch is like the god
Oh,
tier.
okay, so you need to try French Toast Crunch. Same brand. They made a French Toast Crunch.
Are you
It comes in a
serious?
red. Yes. Okay. They made. Okay. It was like an exclusive when we were kids, and they brought it back. So when you go to the grocery store, it's a red box and it says French Toast Crunch. It is better than Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Uh,
It's like, yeah, you haven't. It's they're like little bread shaped. Just Google it.
yeah. I get the. I kind of get the feeling. Oh, I forgot to put this. Not Wendy's, but Wendy's spicy nuggets are pretty fucking god tier too. Like I like those a lot. Fine.
Yeah, I mean this is a thing for forever. We can like literally break down who has the best thing, but Wendy's is sucks in so many other aspects that it can't be in the top five.
Yeah, I agree. I can't deal with the fries. I can't deal with the burgers. Ah, it's fine. It's what it is. All right. Well, I want to know what you guys think about this because I know Zan's wrong and I'm right. You guys can be the voter. Actually, that's what we should do. Okay. I gave you my top three. Now you need to take Zan's top three and you need to tell Zan that my top three is better than his top three. While you guys do that, we're gonna take a quick break and set up the next round, which looks like it's gonna be Justin Gennari on humans against Joseph Stacco on Breach. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Love you guys. Bye. What up? We're back with the finals of the very first Vintage Octagon. The winner of this event will walk away with a fat stack of $100 and entry into another Octagon to defend the title. So, kind of looking forward to that. That seems like it's gonna be pretty exciting here. Zan, I gotta tell you, I think I won the fast food bet personally. Not even looking at the results here, but I'm telling you, we're gonna do a quick UI check as the players get set up here. But then I want to take a look at the deck list. Are you as hyped as I am?
Yeah, I'm pretty hyped. I mean, something cool about this tournament series is that you get to see a similar cast of players playing in them because our winners get to stay on pretty much forever.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the deck list real quick. I think we've seen both decks in action at this point, but I want to take a look at like maybe like the nuances of the list. And the one thing about this list that excites me the most is I think it was the Night's Whispers, right? Those were pretty good.
Yeah, I like the Nice Whispers. I think they give the deck like that they bring the deck together in a more like cohesive way. Like a lot of the times cantrips looking for just ancestral just puts you in a weird spot, but when you have Night's Whisper as your cantrip, it's nice to be able to play around cards like Red Elemental Blast. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I think one other huge component of playing a card like Night's Whisper is that, you know, it does apply some pressure because, again, Vintage is a game about resolving your heavy haymakers, or is a format about resolving your heavy haymakers. And one like macro strategy that you can use to accomplish that is by like building like, you know, minor advantages over the course of the game. And then when you're ready to like, you know, pop off with your Ancestral Recall, you can actually just leverage the extra cards that you've drawn off of Night's Whisper to sort of win that fight and then use those heavy haymakers to like snowball the game. So in a sense, you know, it just feels like Night's Whisper might be able to help you with that. I've seen lists that have played as high as 4. This deck is settling in on 2, which I think is pretty smart. On the other side of the table, though, we see, you know, Justin Gennari with this Humans deck, a really off-the-wall pick for this metagame, knowing that maybe most of these players are blue-based players, and, you know, maybe this is why Justin's also kind of crazy and just plays, like, whatever, you know, he feels like playing in Vintage, which is super awesome. And,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, at first I thought he could not win with like I did not expect this deck to make it this far. But I mean, Justin showed his discipline in mulliganing and showed that like if you identify what the metagame is and what decks are like capable of dealing with and what they're not capable of dealing with, that you can build a deck like Humans and navigate it to the finals or the win of even this tournament.
yeah, for sure here. And if we take a look at the opening hand here, Justin's got that nice, crisp, clean black or artifact border Black Lotus, I guess, yeah, old bordered Black Lotus. There we go. And the nice, classy Mox Pearl as well here. Now, again, this is what you said, right? That discipline, right? This is a matchup where you can't really rely on the power of a card like Champion of the Parish or Thalia's Lieutenant or even the damage from Palace Jailer, right? You really want to have the hate that comes across in the form of Thalia, in the form of Sanctum Prelate, in the form of Chembal or Collector Oof or whatever it is. And that's why I kind of expect Justin to mulligan this hand like he did before. And then on the other side of the table, you've got, you know, Joseph with a reasonably solid hand here, right? You've got a Mentor, which is going to be clutch in the matchup, Night's Whisper, Demonic Tutor, and even Brain Freeze. So this could be a super, super fast game. Oh, and looks like I'm wrong, actually.
Yeah, I don't think I would mulligan this hand. Honestly, like at worst, your turn can be like champion into Palace Jailer, right? Which is a pretty fast clock with this Thalia's Lieutenant that's gonna accompany all of this. Plus, plus you're gonna be drawing an extra card every single turn.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I actually didn't even register 1 and 1 together, which was that we could literally play the Palace Jailer on turn 1 because Black Lotus just does horrifyingly terrible Black Lotus things, and especially when it's like caverned out. That being said, now that the Palace Jailer is in play, maybe like the Mentor gets away unscathed here, but there's no fast mana on Joseph's
Yeah,
side, so
we need to see a Lotus Petal as soon as next turn. Otherwise, this clock is going to end the game really quickly. With this Thalia's Lieutenant is already gonna make this champion into a 4/4 and the Palace Jailer into a 3/3. So putting Stacko already down to 12 is just ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure here. And we're going to see that's going to be an end step fetch here. And now I imagine that we're going to see maybe I don't know, do you play the Knight's Whisper on this turn or do you like Demonic Tutor instead?
I mean, I think you kind of have no option. I would probably just Knight's Whisper here just because I need my Monastery Mentor to be as impactful as possible next turn. I mean, there is a huge downside in playing this Underground Sea. I mean, because if we see a Wasteland next turn, it could just end the game.
Yeah, yeah. And
Ooh, there's a Black Lotus.
Yep, this is the Black Lotus. Looks like Monastery Mentor might come down this turn. I kind of wonder if maybe it would just be better to like play the Mentor out next turn, and then because you get the Tundra, and then you could like maybe get a couple more monks into play here. Okay, no Wasteland.
Oh my god. I mean, well, no Wasteland was drawn, but still, this next turn is going to be insane because now you not only have one Lord, you have two Lords. And the other Lord is just going to be threatening to flip and deal more damage for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened in Justin's earlier match against Zio Francone, where the mayor of Aberbrook actually ended up flipping and just started attacking mercilessly, right? And now this is kind of interesting. Do you play the lieutenant or do you play the mayor?
I think you end up playing the lieutenant just because it pushes one more point of damage.
Okay, yeah. So Lieutenant comes down then. That would make Champion a 4/4, Jailer a 3/3. You can attack for 7 points, put Stacko down to 12. And then, I don't know, then it gets tricky because I think the name of this game is that we need to see Stacko pick up maybe some clutch copies of Fast Mana here to leverage alongside the Monastery Mentor, or maybe just some sort of gas in general after the Knight's Whisper to keep the gas flowing, just to keep the cards coming, to keep the monks into play. That's the ultimate prize. And
no, definitely. I mean, it's gonna take some Moxes to get back into the back into this game. You need like a Mox plus another spell. That way you can start chump the chump block train. Otherwise, you're gonna just really fall behind.
yeah, and it's kind of crazy, but if you Knight's Whisper into like Underworld Breach, you do have all the components. You could just win the game, not next turn, but the turn after.
Of course, but I mean, this clock is so fast and scary at the same time. Like, I can't imagine the game the game going 2 turns later.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, this is kind of crazy, but there's a Wasteland.
Yep, it makes things way more difficult for the future.
Okay, Merchant Scroll is pretty good. That picks up Ancestral Recall.
And no damage is being taken. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I would definitely fire it off, go grab that Ancestral, and hope that we hit some Moxes, because if we hit some Moxes off that, then yeah, I mean, there's going to be enough tokens that maybe you could even start pressuring.
Yeah,
pressuring
the life total on the other way back. Yeah, for sure. I kind of am curious. No, I like this. I like playing the Tundra out instead of the Volcanic Island, understanding that maybe Underworld Breach is your backdoor out to win this game against just a board state that isn't really that disruptive here. So Stacko's going to get the copy of Ancestral Recall, cast it, target himself, and I'm kind of curious to see what it picks up here. I'm hoping it's some pretty money cards.
Yeah, I mean, let's see what we're able to find, and it's the bad part of the deck, the part of the deck that Justin has prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
The breach is a combo for the turn after, but don't forget that there's a Wasteland in play as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually the way it looks now is that if you get to untap here on the breach side, do you just win the game? You can play Underworld Breach, buy back the Black Lotus from the graveyard, and then just combo off with Brain Freeze.
Yeah, I mean, that just might be game.
Yeah. Oh, and you took the Monarchy away as well, which is kind of like a nice little, rub in on the face. And okay, I can't fathom that this is actually game here, right? Even if you put the 2 Lords into play, you just chump block twice, so the Thalia's Lieutenant cannot become a 12/12. this turn.
Yeah, it definitely won't work. But you have other options. You can also just cast Once Upon a Time, try to find a Thalia. Um, there are options, so it's
Okay.
just about assessing the best option.
Yep. And what's kind of we sort of see this here, which is that okay, we're going for the lieutenant play, which means that we're just gonna hope that the combo isn't there on the other side of the table, but instead present an overwhelming board that might not necessarily win this turn, but can win the next turn here, which is like a it's an approach for sure, right? Which is like why worry about finding Thalia when we could just like kill them dead kind of deal. And I mean, I definitely understand where we're coming from on that aspect, though. Unfortunately, it looks like the combo kill next turn will wrap things up.
No, definitely.
I almost wonder, Zan, there's probably a world here where Thalia is not even good enough.
It would have been a Thalia. Yeah, it would have just been a Thalia. Would Thalia not be good enough? Why would it not be good enough? You
Well,
play
okay.
Underworld Breach for 3,
hmm
and then can you continue to Mox? Can you continue to Black Lotus
So
efficiently?
I think we're two cards short in the graveyard from actually beating a Thalia this next turn, which is kind of strange to say, but like if we had like not attacked with the Mentor, we could have maybe like chump blocked with the Mentor and then put an extra card in the graveyard. If we top deck like a fetch land, then we can fetch for another Volcanic, and then suddenly we can actually play through a Thalia with the Underworld Breach, tapping 3 mana for.
But I like the attack. The attack meant that either you lose Thalia's Lieutenant or you get the Monarchy and draw an extra card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure here. And Wasteland gonna come down. Target the Underground Sea. Okay, makes sense. The white is certainly the lightest splash in the deck, so cutting off cards like the Demonic Tutor in the graveyard, or Vampiric Tutor, Night's Whisper, makes sense to take the Underground Sea here. I like that. And it looks like there's a Mystic Remora also that's been drawn for turn, but I think this is just gonna be lights out now for Justin, as the Breach player will combo off.
Yep, and this is game.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Yep. And so the way the combo works is we're going to play our copy of Underworld Breach. We're going to use Underworld Breach to buy back Black Lotus from our graveyard, exiling 3 cards for the escape cost, paying the actual mana cost of Black Lotus, which is 0. And then after that, we cast Brain Freeze. We target ourselves. Brain Freeze is going to mill a bunch of cards. Then, we can use those cards to buy back Black Lotus and, repeat the process here, because the Brain Freeze will give us more cards in our graveyard to escape, both future Black Lotuses and future Brain Freezes. So let's take a look at the sideboard here. We got to see Justin earlier, but here we've got an interesting combination of cards from Joseph's side. So in the sideboard, we see 2 Shattering Sprees, we see 1 Mindbreak Trap, 3 Ravenous Traps, 2 Wear Tears, 1 Abrade, 1 Hercule's Recall, 1 Extirpate, that's cool, 1 Surgical, 1 Plow, 1 Pithy Needle, and then 1 Tabernacle. What do you bring in this situation?
I mean, swords, definitely, in Tabernacle, and Abrade, and I think that's it.
Okay. So it seems pretty clean. Like just bring in all the creature removal that you can muster to bring in, and then you got a lot of cards to cut in this matchup, right? You've got 4 copies of Red Elemental Blast you don't want. You've got the 2 copies of Flusterstorm, and I have to imagine maybe then you have to get a little creative with what you bring in and out. Like, do you consider anything else?
I mean, you take out the 4 Red Elemental Blast. That's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you gotta get creative. I mean, I guess you gotta bring in cards like Surgical, because you could potentially deal with one of the threats and then get rid of the rest of them.
Yep. You could also I don't know if Pithy Needle has any applications, maybe like on Wasteland or something weird like that. Or you could keep the blue cards in just to pitch to Force Will. Like, this is obviously like corner case situations that we're thinking about here. And this is not like stock sideboarding, but given the matchup and like the complexity of the matchup, right? Like, it's where you land up. Sometimes you just have to play it out like this. On Justin's side, we've already talked about sideboarding in this matchup from Justin's perspective. And in fact, we know how Justin sideboards, which is bringing in a couple copies of Collector Oof, and what else?
Deafening Silence.
Oh yeah, Deafening Silence is super good here, and it's simply a light splash, not bringing in cards like Force of Vigor or the Surgical Extraction, which,
Yeah.
I personally, I think Surgical Extraction should come in. I mean, obviously, like if you're playing Breach, you could beat Surgical Extraction if you play around it, but given how much pressure this deck can apply from all the other angles, I do feel like, having Surgical Extraction as another element of interaction is desirable. You know what I mean? So we're gonna go into game 2 here. Talk me through these hands.
All right. So looking at Joseph's deck, I mean, it was an easy mulligan. There wasn't really much going on. Force of Will already isn't a good card in the matchup, but looking at the second hand, I mean, you got a lot of cantrips. You have a free cantrip in Gitaxian Probe with um with a mana source that ties really well with Dak Faden, but I would definitely be afraid of Wasteland from the other side. So yeah, I mean, this is a snap keep, and on the bottom you got multiple Thalias. You have a turn to Thalia actually, and then you have Cavern of Souls plus Noble Hierarch, and you have all of these cantrip lands. I mean, the human's hand is just looking absolutely spectacular and really hard to beat, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this turn 1 Thalia, like we saw it do some heavy lifting in the first match, and I get the feeling that it's going to do some more heavy lifting in the second match here. Being protected by Cavern of Souls makes that Force of Will look kind of dumb here. But I mean, like, this is a question that you asked earlier, right? Which was like, do you think you're supposed to Force of Will the Mox in this situation? And it
I think
sucks.
that it sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like forcing the Mox does not feel good at all. But then look at this, like that was the only point of interaction for this, and now you just have to play a super slowed down game here. I mean, I guess you could play like Underground Sea into Mox Ruby into Gitaxian Probe this turn to see a backup Thalia.
I
But
actually just think it's correct in the matchup to force the Mox every time.
really, okay, yeah, that's kind of interesting because right, like look how disruptive this play is, and I'm like, the humans deck is definitely designed to punish Force of Will as hard as it can, right? And like, so when you think about it, like layers wise, it maybe makes sense to start interacting at non stock points, like in these like unique points, like targeting something like a Mox Ruby. I mean, certainly unorthodox, but then like the problem is that's such a low level play, and that Justin's got the backup here, like in like just playing like Noble Hierarch and then turn 2 Thalia, and at that point it's like, what do you do after that, right? So
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, it's making the rest of it's making the rest of your hand function in a much better way.
hmm,
Right? Like the thing is, I don't think you should walk into a cavern no matter what. Slowing down their explosiveness is pretty huge. Not to mention the fact that you have like this upside of maybe they're relying on that Mox Ruby. Like, just think about it. The hand could be the absolute opposite of this hand, where there's like not noble hierarchs, there's a bunch of other creatures, and it's this cavern plus this Mox Ruby. But it's so unintuitive to counter the Mox Ruby that you just never do it, and it doesn't allow the blue deck to like figure out the most optimal way to win the matchup.
for sure, a high risk, high reward play, and in this situation, looks like it would have gotten punished. So maybe a little bit of luck here, but regardless of that, the Thalia crashing in for 4 points of damage on this turn is a sizable clock. Given that Joseph's hand right now really doesn't have too much going on. I mean, we found the 4th mana source here to potentially get the Dak Faden in at a later time, but Dak Faden doesn't interact with the board here. I think what Joseph needs to find is a copy of something like Monastery Mentor or a Swords to Plowshares, which is going to go to the top of the deck. Fortunately, Justin has a backup Thalia.
Yeah, so it's not going to be as impactful. Plus, well, I mean, there's going to be another hit for at least 4 next turn. So Thalia, the second Thalia is not going to see some play for some time. But even if you look at this game, if the Mox Ruby was countered, it would have actually just countered 3 points of damage as well.
Okay, and that's certainly not nothing.
Yeah. And right, like the next turn would have potentially been like just Thalia plus another noble, and yeah, I mean, it would have made use of a card that is actually just has no use.
Okay, cool. So in this situation, we see Thalia coming across here, dealing another 4 points of damage. I almost wonder if like you get really, really deep into the tank here on Joseph's side and just say like, maybe I'll take another 4 points of damage, plow that Thalia on the end step, and then get a whole turn of just like, unadulterated blue nonsense. But
You can't swords at the end step because Thalia makes things cost 1 more.
I meant like for the next turn. So the next turn cycle, you just draw, you pass, and then you swords the Thalia, and then maybe you get a good turn here. But with the Champion of the Parish coming down, it just feels like a lot of damage. And there's a Tabernacle.
That makes things a little more complicated.
Yeah. So awkwardly enough, I feel like the Tabernacle is not that good here.
Well, what it could prevent is it could prevent this other Thalia from seeing play, but that's still going to be fairly difficult.
Okay, yeah. We did see like a Thalia into Thalia line earlier that procced exactly lethal here. You could attack with the first Thalia and then maybe like, do some stuff here. So this is kind of a tricky situation. Joseph's going to have to figure out how they want to navigate this next turn, whether they want to plow now and then maybe gush into something, whether they want to take some damage. They're going to take how much damage are they taking next turn? 4 damage, maybe a little bit more. I guess it also depends on the top deck too, right?
I mean, the most basic line here is most likely Tabernacle into the swords, right? And then make your opponent pay for the Thalia, and then hopefully they attack only with Thalia. But my gut says like that Justin is going to try to diversify the cards that are going to be attacking.
Okay, so come in with the Champion, come in with the Thalia, bang, 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 a little bit of damage here or there, and yeah, okay, I'm not terribly surprised by it. I mean, maybe there's gonna be like a sweet creature top deck, like a Collector Oof that would come down and cause a lot of problems. I think Sanctum Prelate.
I mean, Collector Oof would destroy Justin as well.
Oh, in the face of the Tabernacle, I guess. So you don't really want to do that for sure. Okay.
So we have an attack for 4. So the plan is working, right? You get to save 4 points of damage here, and the threats weren't diversified.
For sure, yeah. Okay, so that's an interesting question. So there's certainly a pause here, which means that Joseph is certainly thinking about plowing the Thalia now or plowing it later. I mean, that's when you're supposed to pull the trigger, right? Like, this is playing around something else potentially scary. I mean, here's the thing, right? If you plow the Thalia next turn, you have such a good turn coming up between Gush and Dak Faden. You're going to see a lot of cards, and there's some kill potential out there if you hit the right things, So maybe there's a real reason to just take the 4 points of damage here, pass the turn, and nope, just going to...
Yeah, I agree with this play. From his perspective, he shouldn't be trying to play around a second Thalia. It's also not the second Thalia. It's actually it's the second Thalia plus a land.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
That's a lot to ask for. And it could be the difference between a whole turn, right? Because this champion is still going to be attacking for minimum of 3, if not more, if there's at least another human on the side, which could require another land or not.
For sure here. And it looks like the second Cavern of Souls is also going to be on human. Yeah, both of them are going to be on human here. I guess one thing to consider, Zan, is like I get a little bit nervous thinking about these sort of things because from the other side of the table, that there's so many scary cards like Kambal, there's Collector Oof, right? There's Dark Confidant. It's hard to prioritize what you need to save that Source to Plowshares for because you really do have limited accessibility to removal spells in this matchup. And blue decks are not designed with something like this Humans Hate Bear deck in mind, right? Like the game plan against this deck is legit just to solitaire, right? Is to just play as quickly as possible and win before, the humans deck can get online. Because if the humans deck is able to get online...
Oh my god.
That's strong.
Yeah, I mean, they have 2/3 of the combo there.
Yeah. One Black Lotus away from potentially winning the game. We probably need some mana sources off of this too, though. But yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, Dak Faden is doing a really good job at putting cards in the graveyard for Underworld Breach.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the clock is still just a 2-turn clock. I mean, it's still a 3-turn clock right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so here's the Noble Hierarch tapping to protect itself. There's an unclaimed territory, so that's not going to do it here. So basically, it looks like, I mean, outside of some bizarre top deck, this might just be the pace of the game here. Justin gets a limited accessibility in terms of dealing damage. Actually, this is a really exciting question. Who do you attack with the Dak Faden? With the creatures, do you attack Dak Faden or do you attack the life total?
I mean, it's super, super close. And in this spot, you're probably just gonna attack face.
Okay, try to end the game on the spot next turn
Yeah,
then.
you try to attack face because that means any human next turn, the draw next turn, is presents lethal.
Correct. Yeah. All right, dishing it out. Black Lotus 2, just in case we draw, like, I don't even know, like some sort of cycling land into another cycling thing. It's just good to have the mana out and not worry about Thalia. Justin's Heart is on the table now, and it's all up to these next few top decks to see if Breach is going to be able to 2-0, get Avenge
Just
Franco.
one card away.
Yeah,
Black
Franco.
Lotus.
But I mean, like, finding exactly Black Lotus is kind of an ask too in this spot, right? You've got like 40 cards in your deck. Exactly the top two has to be something like Black Lotus. Okay, and we're gonna see. Looks like Wear Tear and Dig Through Time.
Yeah, I mean, and Dig Through Time is something that can find Black Lotus.
Super.
And it does. If I remember correctly, it can exile the right amount of cards.
Correct. Yeah, you can actually delve away the Thalia attacks, which is super, super awesome. What's interesting to me here, though, is whether or not we want to leverage maybe Underworld Breach alongside the Swords to Plowshares in the graveyard to accomplish something. But I don't know. That doesn't really seem like that good of a solution.
Yeah, it's not a winning line because there are 2 Noble Hierarchs on the other side, which means that any human on the other side still presents lethal, even if you were to get rid of this Dahlia.
Okay.
So I think I would take the riskier play of casting this Dig Through Time, trying to have the upside of hitting Mox. Of hitting Lotus, Black Lotus. It's so weird to say Black Lotus because I never use that when I'm talking about Magic. But you can also hit a removal spell in Bolt.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man, I'm kind of nervous to see what happens here. What's the pickup here? So the Dig Through Time is going to reveal another copy of Wear Tear, 3 fetch lands, a Night's Whisper, a Merchant Scroll, and
Black Lotus.
a Flusterstorm. Not exactly the same here. And that's going to be GG's there for Justin Gennari, going 1-1 now into the last round. It looks like Sanctum Prelate was going to be the next draw here. So, again, we sort of saw some of the issues with sideboarding. Right, we had leftover cards that didn't really do too much. The Wear Tear certainly didn't feel that good. We saw it got pitched to the Dak Faden, which is probably like the best utility for that card anyways. Again, is there anything else that we would swap out then? Like, do we see any utility for something like Pithing Needle or Shattering Spree, or I don't even know.
Well, I mean, I guess you could put Pithing Needle on like some of the Horizon Canopy type lands. But that seems to be it.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, right? Because the Humans deck doesn't actually have consistency in the form of like Preordains or Ancestral Recalls or Merchant Scrolls or whatever. So really, I think it's just relying on like the Canopy lands, and it's also relying on like card effects like Palace Jailer and Dark Confidant to generate that card quantity. Otherwise, just saying like, this is what I have, and if you can handle it, you win. If you can't, you lose. That kind of deal, right?
Yeah. What I would like to see in this next match is countering these Moxes and Black Lotuses. That's what needs to be forced. If I see that, I think we will start seeing different games.
It's interesting. I think on the play, I care a lot less about being that aggressive, retaining tempo to that degree, because like we saw, right, there's a potential chance for a huge punish here. Like, look at this. In Justin's sideboard or in his deck, he's got so many good turn 1 plays and turn 2 plays that even if you slow the turn 2 plays down by just a little bit, actually, you know what? Like, I feel like in that game too, what did Force of Will even accomplish? Right, not too much.
In that game too, it did nothing. It was pitched by Dak Faden later on.
Okay, well then, Okay, yeah, my gut says that. I mean, if I were, looking at a gun with the barrel loaded straight at me, I would say no. I still wouldn't do it.
Don't force it.
Yeah, that's my. I don't know. I can't bring myself to do it, but I think it's certainly
Well, we might see it now.
okay. This is a mulligan to 6. It looks like. Oh, both players have mulligan to 6 actually.
Okay, they both have pretty fair hands. This looks like a modern. This looks like a modern battle now.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie though, it could just be good enough to win, right? Double Wasteland and a Thalia and a Dark Confidant to recoup the cards, and then Camball is a card that says you literally will die if you try to combo me. So
yeah, I mean, they're certainly good hands. I mean, there's a Mock Sapphire in Stacko's hand, so the better hand for Stacko for sure.
And it looks like Sacco is hovering over the basic island to put back here, slightly thinking maybe put back the island or the Force of Will, ending up on the Force of Will. And I have to agree with that decision. We sort of saw in all these games with humans, right? Thalia has just been really, really, really annoying. And you need to have your mana sources on time to be able to win.
Oh, and it's a mulligan down to 5 from humans. And I mean, very disciplined mulligan. Even though it that last hand would have gotten there, it was definitely not on the same power level.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good mulligan to 5, though, right? You have the key card from your sideboard in your mull here, which is Deafening Silence. And I feel like
And you have Thalia.
Yeah. This is we're shaping up to a god. The problem with the Deafening Silence is that we can't cast it on turn 1 because of our mana base, which is, Omni mana for the humans, which kind of makes sense when you have a couple stray costs here. I mean, I guess you are in like what, Abzan or Junk colors. What's the other card that you put back here on this mold of 5?
Probably Once Upon a Time.
Okay, I think I like that. Every other card has utility, right? What would you even be Once Upon a Timing for? Probably mana and some sort of.
Yeah, it's probably mana or Sanctum Prelate.
Okay.
Which means that you're getting rid of the Deafening Silence.
Because the Thalia and the Noble Hierarch are non-negotiable. Could you get rid of like an Unclaimed Territory or a Cavern of Souls?
That's the moment you start looking. You can never get rid of Cavern of Souls.
Okay, sure. What about the Unclaimed Territory?
You could, but then you're taking a risk, right? The Noble could be taken care of, or the thing that you're looking for is that 3-drop, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, and this is it. This is a slightly greedier line, but on a mulligan to 5, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do here. I'm kind of curious to see whether or not Joseph is going to actually...
Well, actually, I take it all back. I think it was right to keep the Once Upon a Time over the Unclaimed Territory. And the reason why is so you can cast Deafening Silence on turn 1.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And this is a Demonic Tutor coming down. So we still have the blue card for Force of Will here, which is very strong. Okay, I will say one thing which I like about Joseph's list as opposed to the other list that we saw earlier. Mm-hmm. We saw that Franco's deck was actually kind of just stone cold to the turn 1 Deafening Silence, but 2 copies of Wear Tear that we've seen come in from Joseph's side in this matchup means that we are prepared to handle a card like Deafening Silence.
Ooh, that's smart.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, cool. So maybe we actually had we were saying that, we have not enough cards to bring in, but it just like flushes or it sort of solves itself. And wow, okay, there's a little bit of a punish.
That card is absolutely incredible here.
Yeah, and when I say it's a little bit of a punish, I'm looking at Justin's Once Upon a Time right now, and it's 2 Moxen, Sanctum Prelate, Thalia, and Dark Confidant. So you really, really wish this Once Upon a Time was a land right now, but hindsight is 2020. So
yeah, I mean, still some really great cards in hand
for sure. Yeah,
I mean, play a Noble on turn 1, and you get to continue to play the game. A turn 2 Thalia is not as good as turn 1, and a turn 1 Deafening Silence is also not as good. But I mean, we should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of I'm more curious about what top 4 cards are on Joseph's deck here, because like we're gonna see some fireworks pop off next turn. And honestly, like the game that Franco also won against Justin, it began with all happy stories, or began with all happy starts, with an ancestral recall, targeting themselves to just get massively ahead on resources, right? And I'm gonna tell you this: Underworld Breach also just seems like one of the better ancestral recall decks, thanks to Underworld Breach being able to buy back those cards, and there's a Night's Whisper, but also because you've got like Mystic Sanctuary, right? So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, when does ancestral not feel nice? That's
Oh,
the real
I
question.
I can answer that question, and you don't want the answer to that question. I'll tell you
I
right
mean, it
now.
doesn't feel. Okay, tell me. I need to
Oh
know.
my god! Anytime you're playing against a shops player that's got like Trinisphere in play, or like Chalice on one,
Oh, come on.
against like Narsets and Leovolds, and recently, okay, well, there's a top deck Dark Confidant, and I mean, it's not a land, but
It's also just not acceptable.
wow, take a look at that. Do you agree with this play? Thalia over the Deafening Silence?
Yeah, basically the thought process is how soon can I get a disruptive element out there,
Okay.
rather than how soon can I get something that fixes the rest of my deck out there.
Okay.
And I think it's the correct play,
Makes
because the last
sense.
thing you want to do is just like die to multiple spells. If you guys are both on a 1-for-1 spell basis, I think that gives you the highest chance. And a Thalia into a Sanctum Prelate is much better than a Confidant into a Sanctum Prelate.
Okay, sure thing. So, Dak Fane going to tick up, going to find a copy of Volcanic Island and Preordained. That's the card on the very right, which looks like it's going to get discarded thanks to the Thalia tax. You don't really want to spend 2 mana on just a Preordain. Okay, that's kind of tragic if we're being totally honest here.
Yeah. I mean, you just take the turn to just play a Deafening Silence, get in for 3 at the Dak Faden, and just move on. That's the cards that you've been dealt. It's been really unfortunate. I mean, once upon a time, odds to find any land are pretty high. Not only are you looking at those top 5 cards, you're putting the rest of them like below your deck, so you're still increasing your chance of hitting a land, right? Like how many cards? You get 7 looks at hitting any land in your deck, um, while you have a land on the bottom of your deck because you put it there. Um, yeah, I mean, I just think that this is just quite unlucky.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, though, I will say that this specific sequence of playing the Thalia before the Deafening Silence was certainly rewarded, right? Because your opponent tapped out for that Dak Faden, meaning that they can't play the Force of Will to counter the Deafening Silence, which is one of the few cards in your deck that actually can be countered by Force of Will here. Now, this is a little bit interesting. So the Polluted Delta is going to gather Mystic Sanctuary to find Demonic Tutor, and Dak Faden can, shortcut a way to get the Demonic Tutor. Then you can maybe Demonic Tutor for, I don't know, like Swords to Plowshares or something.
Yeah, but the Thalia doesn't do a whole lot anymore. I think you should just be looking for Wear Tear.
Okay, yeah, I actually think that might be a little bit better, right? Demonic Tutor for to tear, and then I guess you don't have white mana quite yet, but the Scalding Tarn can pick up a Tundra for the turn after, so there's certainly a lot to be done here. But okay, it looks like it's just gonna be Night's Whisper instead.
Interesting. I'm surprised the dig through time was not kept, because you want to keep an instant or sorcery for uh for like your opponent's turn. That's when you can cast another spell,
Yeah, just do multiple
right?
things in a turn.
Yeah, just do one thing on your turn, one thing on their turn, one thing on your turn, and that's a way to play around a Deafening Silence.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you one thing right now, Zan, is that this inability to pick up an actual third mana source that can tap per mana this turn is really costing Justin, right? Because look at how loaded Justin's hand is right now. Double Sanctum Prelate, right? We saw earlier there was a Sanctum Prelate
Yeah.
on 1, a Sanctum Prelate on 2, a Sanctum Prelate on 3. I just feel like this is a song that just like, we'll see in the top 40 chart or something like next week, but this game would have been over, I think.
I mean, if that land was kept, the game would have been over.
Mm-hmm.
But still in a pretty good spot here. I mean, you just play your Lotus Petal, you put your Noble Hierarch down, and then you're in a good spot. I think the mistake that was, yeah, I think the mistake that was made was, not playing around the Deafening Silence.
Yeah, for sure. I think Deafening Silence was actually one of the scarier cards here. Okay, there's a
White
Tundra,
Source.
so you can Demonic Tutor for Wear Tear now. And unfortunately, because of the Thalia tax, you don't get the fuse value, but Time Walk instead means that you get to play another mana source. So you actually could get the fuse value and kill the Lotus Petal. I mean, it's not that much, but it's also not nothing. The question is, how are you going to beat Sanctum Prelate as well?
Yeah. This game is definitely a puzzle that Stacko's gonna have to figure out.
Okay, look. Sit with me for just a second as I tell you a story about a young Breach player who had to beat a Deafening Silence, a Sanctum Prelate, and a Thalia Guardian of Thraben. This turn, your protagonist, Joseph, cast the Demonic Tutor, can't cast any other spells here, but is going to play a land, get that Wear Tear, fuse it, kill the Deafening Silence and the Lotus Petal, and then is going to top deck an Underworld Breach. I think there are enough cards where you could go Underworld Breach, buy back your Demonic Tutor, play a Black Lotus, play a Black Lotus, play a Black Lotus.
How does that work? The Sanctum Prelate is coming down next turn.
What do you think the Sanctum Prelate's going to be on?
Oh, wow. And a Monastery Mentor has been gotten.
Okay, wait, this is completely like the wrong book, the wrong author, the wrong chapter. My bad. Monastery Mentor seems pretty sweet here.
Yeah, honestly, that's really scary.
Okay, well, there's a third Sanctum Prelate here. I mean, if you're gonna play the Sanctum Prelate, you probably just name one, right, to turn off something like Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah, I mean, you're either naming one or two.
Mm-hmm. Two is gonna be
name
good.
Three.
Yeah, you could name three for something like Dak Faden or Teferi or whatever, but I have a feeling that we're gonna see one come down and take out any potential.
I like one because you're kind of shutting down the Monastery Mentor as well by playing Sanctum Prelates, because every single turn that you play a Sanctum Prelate is less spells that Monastery Mentor can trigger off of.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So as long as you just save the Mox Jet as the last one that you put in, because your opponent is least likely to name 0.
Okay. See what you mean here. Yeah, I mean, Thalia going to come in for 4 points of damage, put Joseph down from 11 or 15 down to 11 here. And man, I feel like this board state would be so good if there just wasn't a Deafening Silence in play. That's not nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually just scary.
You've got a combat trick in Brain Freeze?
Yeah.
Is that good enough, though? Hard to say.
Pretty good. I mean, you still get to Faithless it.
Which is pretty good, yeah, I agree. We'll see if this Mentor pays off, though, because... Oh, there's a Plow that doesn't do anything. Okay. So
no.
We go over to the Mox Jet and the Flooded Strand here. I mean, maybe we're just saying that we have where our mana is online. We don't need to... But the Mox Jet translates into damage, too, though, right?
Yeah, the Mox Jet translates into damage, whereas the Swords is a dead card. Practically forever.
Mm-hmm. And the real downside, the real shame in all this is that now the second Sanctum Prelate's going to come down and name 2. And now there are 0 outs, I think, in No,
isn't there a Teferi?
No, there's actually no Teferi. What I was looking at, the second out that I was looking at was the one of a Braid. But
what's the CMC of Wear Tear?
It's 1, 2, and 3.
That sucks.
Yeah. So you can fuse it, but an artifact must be in play. So there could be like some weird world where, like, to prevent a prowess trigger, Justin like sacks the Lotus Petal, and just never plays the Mox Opal, and then you can't cast the Wear Tear after that. Yeah. But like, there's simply nothing to be done at this point. I mean, now you have to cast Force of Will into maybe that Sanctum Prelate. It this, yeah, it just does
Yeah.
not seem that good here. Simply gonna
Yeah, I mean,
pass
this
here.
game is certainly over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. And a Lord being drawn has to mean the end of it.
Not gonna lie, Zan, this is kind of a Max Papega moment because when I thought that we had our first vintage Octagon, you would literally have to slap me from the future for me to believe you that Justin on humans would be in a commanding position in the final game, in the final match, playing for $100 and a free entry. Like, this is not what I expected
I
at
mean,
all.
Justin's here and he's teaching us a masterclass, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like this is a very, very valuable lesson, which is that in vintage, your dreams too can come true because the cards are so busted. But also, like, I think this is a very tactical choice too, right? Because all jokes aside, I think Justin definitely like chose this deck expecting a lot of players to bring like these stock archetypes, and is saying like, hey, I know you can't beat me if you're playing this deck, so I'm just gonna do my homework and make sure that I'm here and I'm ahead of you. Simple.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so impressed. I'm really impressed, honestly. Like every detail of his deck really made a lot of sense once we saw everything like play out. At first I was just like this deck is outclassed and I couldn't be more wrong.
Yeah. And 2 points of life left for Jay Stacko. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in hand here. Only 2 of which are castable, but not even by any regular means. And yeah, I mean at this point it's pretty over. Yeah, I mean, Justin hovering over the Deafening Silence. I think this card is literally what defined it, right? On that turn 4, when the Thalia was in play, Dak Faden came down, tapped out, no way to use that Force of Will. That Force of Will has been in Joseph's hand since turn 1, and I swear to God, I don't even think I've seen it move from that slot in his hand,
Yeah, I mean, you could probably say it's been in his hand since turn 1 of game 1 and game 2 and game 3,
Yeah. And I feel like there's maybe some sort of story here, some sort of lesson that can be learned. Maybe you're right. Maybe the Mox Ruby needed to be Force of Willed. But like, that being said, Justin definitely took advantage of this metagame. Congratulations, winning the very first vintage Octagon. That is $100 going into your pocket. The first trophy also for vintage, and you get free entry into any Octagon of your choice. So, vintage community, we are here for you. I'm here for you for sure as well. And I want to make sure that you guys know that, like, we want to put out vintage events. I had a lot of fun watching this. This is like some pretty, like, this is like learning and exploring and just like watching some crazy stuff happen. It was pretty fun. Very fun.
Yeah. No, I had a lot of fun. I mean, I had to read some cards on stream, but I mean, that's the reason why we're doing it, cuz I mean, we get to experience new Magic cards for the first, like, with you. It's awesome.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Okay, cool.
Well,
So
not exactly new. They're old, but
true.
they're new.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So we have a lot of news to talk about today, though, right? So this week, actually, Tuesday is the first of our of our Octagons, but we actually are bringing to you 4 more Octagons. That's that. 4 more. There we go. 4 more Octagons. We're bringing a lot of action to you, day after day after day after day. What I need from you guys. Okay, look, here's what I need from you guys. I need you guys to sign up for these events and play in them because they're awesome. People are already making out like bandits. I think we've already got our first back-to-back modern champion who's literally is on the path to go infinite, right? They're up like $150 or whatever. That's like 7 re-entries, and they're probably going to win again and again and again. That's pretty sweet. But the schedule, Zan, do you have the schedule for this week?
Yep, I'm going to post it right now. Here is, so I made a Reddit post earlier this week, so I will be posting that, and that has all of our events and everything that you need to know.
Cool. So we'll get that in the chat, but it looks like the schedule is Wednesday is going to be Legacy, Thursday is going to be Historic, And then Friday, we're going to have 2 events fire off. One will be Modern, and then one will be Legacy. So looking forward to that. I know you guys really you've showed a lot of support for Legacy. I personally love Legacy a lot too. So we're going to run those two twice.